said are good, man. All righty, if you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you can remain standing, Eric Wakeling, our police chaplain, is going to give us our invocation.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this city, and we pray a blessing upon it, Lord. We pray that you would give wisdom and insight to this council of leaders. Lord, we pray for peace upon this city. We pray for peace and good discussion in this room tonight. We pray for those that are in need in our city that you would provide for them. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'm now going to call upon Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento to make a presentation, followed by Councilman Morena and then Councilman Tinajero. Please go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I could have Corporal Bertagna, Officer Lopez, and Sergeant Serrano and Ryan Ton please come and join me up here at the dais. I know we got started a little late, so it may be a while before everybody gathers themselves, and our apologies for that. I think we broke our own rule where we said we wanted to be out here as close to 6 p.m. As possible, and unfortunately today wasn't one of those days. But as the gentleman, please come join me, gentlemen, right up here. We're here to talk about something that happened, and a lot of times many of us who read the paper, if anybody still reads the paper, or if we find it online or take a look at the TV and listen to the radio, we always listen to bad news stories, and there's always something that went wrong, somebody who made a mistake, or there's an error, or just something that's critical of what our city does or things that happen. This isn't one of those stories, and I am very, very regretful that I didn't have a chance to see this on TV. But I guess it was a story, on Channel 7, was it? One of the major networks carried this, and I don't watch as much TV as I should, I guess. But it talks about some of the good work that our police officers do, and a lot of times what we don't do is have a good balance of information. And so I thought it was important, and thanks to these gentlemen here, they brought this to my attention. I just wanted us to take a moment because it's important that our residents and folks in the city get to know what other things our police officers do besides just keeping us safe and protecting all of us. There was a gentleman, and he's not joining us today, unfortunately. I'm not sure exactly why. There might have been a particular reason why Mr. Romero isn't joining us. But Henry Romero is an adult with cerebral palsy, and he's worked at a Taco Bell here in the city for the past 15 years. And his only way of getting to and from work was one of those adult tricycles. And so it's a very compelling story because we have somebody with a disability, with a special need, and to me that's real important because my wife is a special needs attorney, and she's always advocated on behalf of families whose children and relatives have developmental disabilities. And in early May of this year, his bicycle that he used to get to and from work was stolen, and his supervisor called in that theft, and the supervisors at work told Henry not to worry, but they were going to try to raise money for him so he could get his bike replaced. And with no transportation, Henry wasn't able to come into work and wasn't able to get back and forth. And I'm sure a source of his quality of life was being able to be somebody who was gainfully employed, somebody who was able to contribute to society, and so his job meant a lot to him. Well, in the interim, the responding officers, Officer Lopez, and organized an effort to replace Henry's bike. And he began collecting donations from the Santa Ana Police Officers Association and the DA's Victim Witness Program. The responding officer picked up Henry from his home, took him to the Orange Cycle store, and inside the officers were waiting for him and surprised Henry with the new tricycle. So they, they did something that I think went above and beyond, definitely outside the scope of their job and their employment in bringing, satisfaction, care, and more than anything, just kindness to somebody who had gone through, for us, to have our means of transportation stolen. It's a bad thing, but somebody with a disability, somebody with a special need, it's even more impactful to their life. So I just thought, you all should know this. You all should take witness of this, because many times things get distorted as they're told, whether through the media, whether through just conversation. But these are the things that that were done in this one isolated case. But it meant a lot, because I'm sure it changed Henry's life. And so I want to pass it along here. So Officer Lopez or anybody else of you three gentlemen can come and tell us a little bit more. But it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the residents and those who are listening, that you all took it upon yourself. And it's not the first time that our department does this. You guys remember what happened in San Bernardino when a terrorist took many lives there, and one of those lives was from a Santa Ana resident, and her name was Kim Wynn. And I remember going and visiting Kim's home, and I went with the chief, and some of the officers there just took up a collection on their own and presented it to the family. No press, nobody around. This was just something that they wanted to do voluntarily. So these are the efforts that are made, that sometimes these stories go untold, but it's really important that we take a moment to reflect and to appreciate them. And so if you'll join me in just giving them a big round of applause for doing what we do. So I'll let you three decide who wants to speak on behalf of the effort. All right, you drew the short straw. Go ahead, Officer Lopez.
I was a responding officer to the theft of the bicycle, and seeing Henry, how devastated he was by the loss of his bike. I thought it was the appropriate and right thing to do. So I started contacting people who assisted in purchasing Henry a new bike. The look on his face when I brought him to the bike shop was just priceless. Something you don't see every day. In light of all the negativity that's going on in today's society, that made a huge difference for everybody. That was basically it.
Well, that was very humble and modest of you, but I know that what you did had a profound impact on him, a profound impact on Henry's probably co-employees and everybody that observed that story. So thank you, officer, and thank you, all of you, for doing that. And I know Corporal Bertagna is in here and Henry is in here, but I have some certificates for the three of you, in addition to Corporal Bertagna, if you can make sure he receives that. But thank you all on behalf of all of us who are grateful for the work that you do, Chief. I'm sure that you applaud these efforts, and all of us here just thank you all for that. And please continue that good work, because those are the moments that resonate with our community. So thank you very, very much. And
Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento?
Yes.
May I just say a couple brief comments?
Sure.
July, I'm not sure if you all are aware, Senator Janet Wynn proclaimed for the state of California acts of kindness for the month of July. And so I've asked our city staff if we can move forward in regards to random acts of kindness and supporting her resolution from 2015. And this is just a symbol and a representation that's coming from our police department to wanting to do a kindness act. And as we move forward in July and we proclaim, kind act of Santa Ana or California, however we decide to do this, I think it's important for us to recognize that at the end of the day, specifically what we're going through in this country, that we have an opportunity to help one another. And this is just one symbol of what our police department is doing. And I know there are times where we are very critical, but this is a time where we should be very positive that 99% of the work that they do is kind work. They're always coming to save the lives of our residents. And so that 1% of the time where sometimes we get upset, including myself when I get a ticket, right, for not having a license plate, you get frustrated. But it's just to tell you that they too have kind hearts, that they too pay it forward. And this is just one example of the many over the years. And so I just want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento for acknowledging that. And I look forward to July and how we continue to celebrate random acts of kindness.
Well said. Thank you, Councilwoman. The only thing I would change on that presentation is next time we go find a bicycle for somebody, let's buy it in Santa Ana. That's the only thing.
This time would like to call Councilmember Reyna and the Santa Ana girls basketball team volunteer coaches. If you'd join them up front, please.
Did you invite anybody up? Oh, there they come. All right. I know there's a whole bunch of them out there. Don't be shy. Come on up here. All the way around. Don't be shy. Fantastic. I don't know if that's a player in practice or is that a coach in practice. Que bueno. Come all the way. Don't be shy. All the way in. Cool. You may be in two lanes, 2 rows. Que bueno. Oh. So as we have them coming up in the background here, please make room all the way in the back. You can make a second row. Don't be shy, all the way in. Good to see you, good to see you. Man, it's a big group. Que bueno, que bueno. Don't be shy, come all the way in. Don't be shy, come all the way in. Yikes. This is too cool. Oh, man, more girls. Come on, entrate, pásale. Don't be shy. Bring your trophies with you. Be proud of them trophies. This is fantastic work, young ladies. Absolutely, absolutely. I can't stop smiling. I absolutely love this. This is one of my favorite parts. It truly is. You know, as a youth growing up here in Santa Ana in the 80s, we faced a lot of challenges. And I didn't have to look hard for some of those challenges because they were within my home, let alone stepping outside. And for me, what a saving grace was truly playing the youth sports through the city of Santa Ana Parks and Rec. Believe it or not, at the time, it was $7 a season. And unfortunately, I had to be on a payment plan, and I wasn't the only one. And those are the only options that we had available to keep us engaged in positive activities. And to me, there's no greater impact in a person's life than another caring human being. And to have our parents, volunteers, to have our coaches dedicate time to assist and help out a child that doesn't even belong to them speaks volumes of their character, speaks volumes of their dedication to making Santa Ana that much better because somebody had an influence on them. Real quick, this year's 2016 youth sports basketball program had over 300 female registered for the program. First time in history we've had that many, so I want to congratulate for the ladies for coming in that strong. Congratulations. The program had over 29 teams with over 300 participants, 64 volunteers, 340 volunteer hours per week, 3,456 hours dedicated for the entire sports program. And if you think about that, that's almost $35,000 in kind that the parents and the parents behind me have dedicated into our community. That speaks volumes. It's real easy to say, I want to dedicate time for the kids, but to actually do something about that, to actually dedicate every Tuesday or every Saturday to really have an impact in our kids' lives is absolutely incredible. I really appreciate their time and energy. Before I give all the coaches some credit, I'm going to ask a coach if they want to come on up here and speak. Come on up here.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Joe. This is more for like the councilman. The last time I was in these chambers, I think it was this building, it was 17 years ago. That was my daughter's age. I was 10 years old getting a medal from the mayor from playing basketball as well. So just the fact that you guys do this for the kids, this stays with them for the rest of their lives. I'm proud to be a resident of City of Santa Ana. I'm glad I was a part of it this year. My kids are here. Love you guys. But you guys are awesome for doing stuff like this because it's going to carry. My mom still has my medal, I think, at her house. So, yeah, you know, it's crazy. But it's always good to give back. And this year was probably my 5th year coaching. Coach my little brother, now my daughter is playing. It's awesome. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll take the compliment, but really you guys are the ones that are awesome. You guys are the ones taking time out of your schedule to help out. I'm going to ask one of the young ladies to come on up and speak. Don't be shy, come on up. Your star player, éntrate, mija. Don't be shy. Tell them about your statistics, your stats. Share on her behalf. Come on, éntrate, mija. Don't be shy.
I just wanted to brag about Maritza here. She was our star player, and she's like incredible, so look out for her in the future. Maritza was just amazing. The whole team was amazing, and it was so wonderful to have such good sportsmanship. And on top of that, I just wanted to brag a little bit. Her highest scoring game was 35 points in one game. So, praise God. Say how you enjoy basketball or something. How you love sports. How long you been playing? Tell them how long. Come on. It's okay. Just say how long you've been playing basketball. How long you've been at the Jerome Center too. Tell them, mija. You could do it. Tell them why you love basketball.
I love basketball because I like the challenge of it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you. You know, and she actually, I mean, she said it softly, but you heard she likes the challenge. And believe it or not, our young people are seeking out challenges. And they're seeking them out in the most positive way. And if we don't give them that positive outlet, they're going to find those challenges in the negative. And here's a group of parents out here ready to fight the opposite of that, to make sure that they do have positive experiences. I did notice there's two people in the audience or in the group here that I remember as a student. I remember playing sports with them. I remember taking them to Catalina. And it's great to see them so many years later, still involved, still giving back, still being a role model. You know, when you invest in a young person, it reaps so many benefits, and for them to be still engaged in Santa Ana is beyond words. It's beyond words. Again, I want to thank all the coaches and the parents for dedicating so much time and energy and having an impact on the young people. I want to thank the young people for being hungry, being aggressive, and want to have those challenges, but in the most positive way. Please join me one more time in giving them a round of applause. I'm going to go outside and we'll give you guys this out there. There might be a few.
Now let me call upon Councilmember Salty Najero. And if folks are here from the Kathy Wynn of Modern Hair and Nail Spa, please come on forward at this time.
All right. This is a special night. We talk about the American dream. This is an individual who is an epitome of that. I want to talk to you a little bit about Kathy Wynn, but I'm going to wait a little bit because I know there's a little bit of static, so I want to make sure everybody can hear what I'm about to say. In the meantime, I can tell you a joke. No, I'm just teasing. I'm not going to do that. Okay, Kathy Wynn started her salon career over 18 years ago at Fantastic Sam's. That was the first time I met her. I actually had hair, you know. And after 4 years at Fantastic Sam's, she decided that she was going to go out on her own. So she rented a booth at a different salon in another part of the city, but still within the city of Santa Ana. Much of Kathy's business was by word of mouth, which is how she was able to open up her own business. So after a couple of years there, she decided to open up her own salon. The business was called Modern Hair and Nail Spa, and in just a few years, it has doubled in size. So much so that she had to move out of her location over in the South Coast Plaza area, over by the shopping center, by Vaughn's and that area, and go to the lower level and double the size of her salon. Now she has maximized doubled her business. People still come in because of word of mouth, because of the good work she does. I know many people that I went to high school with that have kids now and so forth that bring their kids in. They get their services there. They have a nail spa now and so forth. And the reason why I wanted to bring her up here and the reason why she's being honored by the council tonight is because she's a positive example for young women who want to start their own business. Here's an individual who immigrated to the United States, started small, moved up, went a little bigger after that, and now has a full-on business that is thriving. And I just want Kathy to know that you are the epitome of living the American dream. Thank you for providing excellent service to the community and for choosing to have your business here in the city of Santa Ana. Thank you for servicing us, and we're going to give you this wonderful recognition that is signed by all the members of the council, including the mayor. And it says, Kathy Wynn, in recognition of your excellent business and service to the community, dated this 21st day of June, 2016. Thank you very much. If you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Sal. Hi. I want to introduce myself. My name is Kathy Wynn, and I'm a small business woman in Santa Ana. First, I would like to thank Sal. He's the one who introducing me here to all of you. And I would like to thank you, the city of Santa Ana, and the city council, and everyone here for having me here. Well, I have my salon for almost 20 years. I've been in this business almost 20 years. Like Sa said, that I start at the small shop and then I move on. Just recently, I expanded and relocated into the bigger places. So, well, thank you for all of you. And I also have my business card here for 20% off for everything. And I have a full of staff to take care of your hair and your nail needs. So thank you, everyone, again. Have a good day. Thank you, Kathy.
And thank you, Kathy, for choosing Santa Ana, and best wishes on your new endeavor.
Thank you for that. Now I'm going to go to Madam City Attorney and ask if we have any items to report out of closed session.
Mayor, council members, and members of the public, we had several closed session items, but we only have one item that requires reportable action, and that is in the first item. The city council voted by a 4-0 with 2 members abstaining to approve a settlement of $50,856, and that's the Rubicabla versus City of Santa Ana matter.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to turn to the consent calendar, and Councilor Martinez, do you have any items to
Of course, Mayor. Thank you. I will do my no votes. I have an 11A. I'm a no vote. 11B. I'm a no vote on the budget. 20A, 23A, 25A, 25E, 25F, 25G, 25K. I'm a no vote. 25L. I'm a no vote, and 25M. Have
What
a lot
was
of
the
items
yes
to pull.
vote?
We have a very thick agenda.
Thank you. So that's it. Let me go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull item 11B, recuse and abstain on 20B as in boy. I represent business very close to that site. And on 25H, if we could pull that, Mr. Mayor.
25H. Any other items by council members? Okay, we have, before I call a motion, I have a couple requests. 11B, Jored Elmore, I believe it is. Come on up, please.
Mayor and Council, happy to speak to this now. If you're going to pull the item for further consideration, would it be appropriate for me to speak to you then?
Why don't you just go ahead and speak right now, and we'll just...
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, last meeting I raised some concerns regarding the budget as presented. I submitted my concerns in writing with additional background information as Councilmember Benavides requested. I have not received any reply or any further information on that, so I come before you this evening to ask if you have, and if you would kindly share that with us.
Staff, any brief update on that, please?
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. We did receive his information. We have not made any changes as a result of the budget, so we're recommending the same budget as recommended before with regard to his comments.
Thank you, but we did get your written
Very good.
comments.
This afternoon, probably as you were going into closed session, I sent a follow-up email to Council, copying the City Attorney and the City Clerk, advising that the action that Council took on this item in the last session appears to have violated the Brown Act, and requesting the Council take that under consideration as a curing correct motion to probably notice and conduct the public hearing, requesting public comment before taking action on the first reading.
Thank you. Madam City Attorney, please.
Mayor and City Council members, I do want to let you know that at the last meeting, we unfortunately, we have so many speaker cards from time to time. Mr. Elmore's card was submitted. Unfortunately, he was not called prior to taking action on the budget. However, he was called up and allowed to address the City Council. You did acknowledge his comments and had asked that his comments be addressed. He's also been able to speak this evening. So I've looked at this matter. There is a thing in the Brown Act called substantial compliance. It was an honest mistake. No one was preventing him from speaking. And so I don't believe that you are required to reconsider your action, primarily because it's on the agenda again tonight and he's here again. It's not an ideal situation. I would caution the council to be careful to make sure we're accepting cards, but I think it was an honest mistake and there was substantial compliance.
And he did get a chance to speak then and a chance
Correct.
to speak today.
Correct.
And we're having a second reading today. Alan Lawson, followed by Debbie McEwen.
Mayor and City Council, my name's Alan Lawson. I'm an Associate Director with the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society, which we abbreviate to SAHPS. As you know, the city currently owns 3 vacant homes on East 6th Street, located in the historic Lacey neighborhood just west of the train station. The city intends to demolish these houses in July to create a neighborhood park. SAHPS respectfully requests that the City Council not vote on tonight's agenda item 25F, awarding a contract for the demolition of the houses at 710, 714, and 720 East 6th Street. Instead, we request that the City Council continue the item to allow sufficient time for the community and SAHPS to meet with the city's Parks Department to discuss the reuse of the home at 720 East 6th Street as part of a future park or to be moved to another location in Santa Ana. SAHPS and Historical Preservationists met with the city in February of this year to ask that it preserve one of the 3 homes at in the subject location, and this is the 720 East 6th Street, also known as the Bergen House, built in 1908. And we request that it be considered as part of the future park to be used as either part of the park or for community purposes. The city did not respond to our request, and request for a second meeting with the Parks Department to discuss preservation options for the house at 720 East 6th Street. Earlier this month, SAHPS and several community activists with the city staff walked through the property, and we saw potential in preserving the historic house at 720 East 6th Street and retaining its many mature trees as an asset to the planned neighborhood park. If the community decided the park should include the fruit and vegetable gardens, for example, the house could serve as a nature center, learning center, gardening classrooms, or a neighborhood co-op to sell small crops. The building retains some 100-year-old architectural features and materials that the youth of Santa Ana do not often see today to appreciate. Because of the current plan to demolish the three houses by mid-July, we ask that the City Council halt the proposed demolition and instead allow the community to preserve the house at 720 6th Street as part of the plan for the park. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Go ahead, Debbie.
Good evening. I sent a letter earlier today with the French Park Historic
Mayor?
Preservation's feeling.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't wish to interrupt, but may I have a moment with the speaker, if we have other speakers, just a moment before she speaks to addresses the council, to just discuss a document that was given
All
to us
right,
this
let's
afternoon?
do that. And meanwhile,
Okay.
Debbie, just talk to her. Madeline Spencer, are you here? Come on up. Go ahead and speak, please.
Good evening, council and staff. It was good to see, and I know that a lot of the council members that are here, as well as the mayor, all are extremely involved with youth, from being teachers to being folks that work in the YMCA with KidWorks, doing debate clubs, and also even like being involved with OSHA and children that are beautifully musically talented, like the mayor's sons. And one of the things that we know is that when you have an opportunity to look at something in a way that has ability for programming to be used in multiple ways rather than in just one, or just being one of the same as what we already have, it also does provide opportunities for youth in this community to learn different things. And some of those things that don't always get covered with sports is, for instance, biology, biotechnology, which comes from hydroponics and from aquaponics and from permaculture, gardening, from historic preservation. When I was 17 years old, I was able to build a house from scratch, from the foundation to the roof, with my family, and that was something that was an amazing thing to see and accomplish. And the thing is that a lot of people in the community have been talking for a long time about ways to do like microfarms and economic development, and there's also opportunities with the culinary arts programs that are getting national acclaim in our city. And if we have the opportunity to look at a space and be able to model it in a way that's going to allow for programming for students in this community to be able to use it in ways that are going to help. We don't have 4-H in our schools here. We don't learn about biotechnology. And there are a lot of underutilized spaces, and a lot of students, while they have green space in the city, they value programming. And we see them programming their own things on concrete when next door there are schools with vacant areas that they could be playing soccer. And that's like like in French Park neighborhood, and that's in different areas. And the things are that we see, there's 2 fitness parks in the downtown that are not regularly programmed, and Elite Fitness said they would love to be able to use Birch Park to program. So the thing is that that's something called soft development, and that soft development a lot of times doesn't come along with the actual creation of a park space, which is the infrastructure that sets up to open it for community. So along with the other 2 speakers who came up, even though the last one didn't speak, we're also asking from the Downtown Business Improvement District to be able to have a delay on the demolition so that we can take time to look at this space and think of ways that we can have that activated so that it can help to be programmed in ways that are going to help for a pipeline for economic development for students and also for multiple uses within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Debbie wanting to speak or not going to speak? Jeff Dickman. So we ought to have Sonia speak to more speakers.
May I just say something? Then I want to mention something because it's important. There was a document that was signed when I wasn't previous to my becoming city attorney. It was signed in April of 2011 by, I believe it's an entity called Friends of Lacey, and some individuals also signed on to that settlement agreement. And as part of that agreement, they agreed that they would never protest or come into a public hearing and protest the demolition of these 3 properties because it was part of that settlement agreement. So just if there was any other members that were party to that agreement, I just want to make sure they're aware. It's been several years now, and they may have forgotten what they signed, but that's the issue.
Debbie was a party to that?
She was.
My name is Jeff Dickman. I'm with Historic French Park Neighborhood, and just like to indicate what the other speakers have said, that French Park is in support of the consideration of the house at 720 East 6th Street to possibly be reused. That would be maybe one alternative. There are other alternatives, perhaps to maybe relocate the structure, as all of the alternatives maybe to give consideration prior to demolition. So just wanted to indicate that Historic French Park had sent a letter in support of the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ija Teslin, please, and Robert Teslin.
Good evening, Mayor Pulida and respectful members of Santa Ana City Council. My name is Ilya Tseglin. Regarding the item 19E, internal audit project plan for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2017, let me remind the words of official of this county. One of them correctly stated, the public is sick and tired of people like Bustamante and former Sheriff Corona. Another words of another official is lovely and correct. The law is based on sound public policy to protect taxpayer and prevent felons from being able to continue accrue benefit while commit crimes. Nick Herda, who is here from Voice of Orange County, can confirm if I correct in my sentencing. This agenda is relevant to all the public offices, internal audit projects. In the culture of corruption and governmental supported crime is easy, the mafia boss, CEO from Orange County Regional Center, rules the public offices behind the scene. Orange County Regional Center have group homes over Santa Ana. Orange County Regional Center and all the vendors that establish their location in Santa Ana should be audited unbiasedly. Orange County Regional Center orchestrating kidnapping innocent disabled and keep them as slaves for profiteering, hurting them physically, emotionally, and mentally. The internal audit should consider a number of situations as DDS is allowing to accumulate $400 million annually in the hands of incompetent but greedy and powerful employees of Orange County Regional Center. They can easily find how they steal money from disabled and put in their pocket. Why they allowed to do it? I want to see that in this year, 2017, they will participate to do the audit unbiasedly and independently.
Thank you. Robert?
Hello, Honorable City Council and Mayor. This is Robert Seglin, brother of Nate Seglin. And as my father was saying about the issue of the audit, you have a case that requires audit of several agencies under Santa Ana jurisdiction, including the Regional Center of Orange County, which is in Santa Ana, so it has Santa Ana jurisdiction, as well as perhaps more the social services would be under the the Board of Supervisors jurisdiction, but certainly when the police officers enter Santa Ana, and Nate says he's being, the group home, 903 South Harmon group home in Santa Ana, and he says he's being choked, they shouldn't lie and say that they don't have it and not write it in the reports. That's one major thing. Another big obstruction of justice, where it's very big dichotomy where he was at home, and the police were very readily swift to grab him upon the report of the Regional Center of Orange County, also Santa Ana, also the jurisdiction. However, they used Irvine police since he was in Irvine. Now that he's in Santa Ana, when he was in Irvine, when he didn't report any abuse and he wanted to stay at the home, they forcefully removed him illegally in violation of two previous orders at that time releasing him on habeas corpus. And then subsequently, 3 weeks later, he was released on habeas corpus, and in contempt of that, he was placed in this 1903 South Harmon group home in violation of 3 judges' orders releasing him, not to speak of all of the horrendous abuse that he suffered in the Cerritos College Hospital and other places that he has been released from. And in contempt of that order, he's been placed in the group home. So now you have a Regional Center of Orange County who is a private organization. And the reason why you need to audit that private organization is because they keep their financial records. Not only they keep them secret, but since they're private, they are not under the same scrutiny as a public organization such as the Department of Developmental Services, which allocates funding to various regional centers in various counties. This regional center is in Orange County, and therefore it's in the jurisdiction of the City Council to audit them to the extent that you would, first of all, find out how much money they are receiving from holding my brother in illegal captivity. You'll find out, and my father can verify for you, he's a professor of mathematics, he's receiving $50,000 a month for his illegal confinement and torture and abuse and having seizures and EPS, where the paramedics refuse to take him to the hospital, and he is basically excluded from any visitation. All of this is in violation from outside visitors, and he's excluded from any medical overview and tests, and all of this should require that you would audit the Regional Center of Orange County.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. With that, I'm now going to bring it back to council. I know that we've had some items that have been pulled. Before we go to those, let me just entertain a motion on the balance of the consent calendar. I would entertain such a motion.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, what would the first item be?
Mr. Mayor, just before we get there, I think because we've had some speakers come before us on agenda item 25F, if we could have that pulled as well.
Yeah, let's pull that.
Councilmember Martinez had pulled that item.
Did you? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's pull it twice.
Okay, so I gotta just go down my list?
I believe so. Let's
Okay,
just,
great.
I thought those were all no votes.
No, let me go down my list. Even though they're no, I need to justify why I'm voting no, right? But I'll be very quick with that.
You got it.
So 11A, at abundance of caution, I wasn't present at the last meeting when that vote took place, so that's why I'm voting no. But I did want to state for the record that what we're doing here with Code Enforcement Authority, we're giving them more authority, and I'm very supportive of that. But we all know in our community that we lack more code enforcement officers. There is a need for more. We all know that the quality of life, not only the safety, but the quality of life for our residents is paramount based on what we're experiencing. And so I'm hopeful that with this recommendation, Mr. City Manager, that we will also look at possibly consolidating, sanitation and the licensed business scene. You're now giving this code enforcement authority the ability to deal with this. And so what I don't want to happen is crossover work, and how can we figure out versus having duplication of both of these triple departments doing all this work. Now that you're giving the authority to code enforcement, how can we possibly, and I know Hassan's looking at me like more work, but the reality is that when you're dealing with sanitation and the business licenses division, now that you're giving the power to code enforcement to actually enact some of this authority, we shouldn't have that duplication with those other departments. So I would hope that we can do some kind of study and look at possibly moving those departments, sanitation and business licensing, within code enforcement. And it's my hope that my colleagues will continue to support to hire more code enforcement officers. Now that we're giving them this authority, it's a lot of power, and they can do a lot of good. But with the very few of code enforcement officers that we have, we need to make sure that we're able to add more so that they can fulfill their jobs. Yes, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and we'll look into that efficiency request. But I do want to emphasize that there are 2 more code enforcement officers recommended in the budget.
Great, thank you. And then on 11B as well.
Hold on, council member, are we going to move that?
Yeah, I'm still, yes, yep.
Okay, so it's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
No.
motion. Okay, so we have, did we get that, Madam
I wasn't
City Clerk?
present at the last meeting. So 11B, an abundance of caution as well, I'm voting no. But I do also just want to state, as I have in the past 9 years, that I'm not supportive of the water transfer fund. Continuing, I know that we have a study that is coming before my colleagues, but I just still need to state for the record that I do not support the water transfer fund into the general fund. And with that, you guys can move the item.
Thank you, council member. Are there any other comments or questions on 11B?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion and
Second.
There's a second. So I have just a couple questions, Mr. City Manager, if you'll indulge me on some of this. And I think our finance director is somewhere close. I see Francisco back there. So I just had a couple of concerns with the budget. I know at the last meeting when we addressed the budget, it was a very chaotic meeting. We, I think, didn't deliberate as robustly as I wish we would have, and I know the budget's been before us. So sometimes it's not always good to beat a dead horse, but it's always good to be thorough. So on this, I know I've heard some concerns from folks talking about our allocation for public safety and specifically for our police department, and I want to make sure that there's no issue that goes unaddressed, and one of those is a sum of some amount of $8 million that is maybe being removed from the department, hasn't been allocated to the department. If you could go through that conversation, Mr. City Manager, now that we have a little bit of time,
Sure.
And this is second reading, so I think it's still germane to us, so if you can give us an explanation on that.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the good news is our budget's grown by $104 million in the last 3 years, which is about 25%. Our capital improvement program has grown by from $30 million to $50 million. It's a 147% increase, so thank you. And then our public safety budget has grown substantially. In the budget presented for you today, it was $106 million actual in 14-15. And the proposed budget today is $120 million, so it's grown by $16 million. I do want to emphasize that the $8 million that you're talking about is attrition savings. It is a point actually that Councilwoman Martinez had mentioned, is that what happens when we have attrition and we don't budget for it, then at the end of the year you have a surplus, and then the department starts spending it, and the council doesn't get to decide how the money's spent. So now we're doing it this year. This is what I've been doing for 30 years, beginning as an intern, a management analyst, and most of your major corporations will determine what level of attrition you're going to have, and they budget for it. So there was a citywide attrition. It's in the budget. We do expect to have some tremendous success this year in hiring police officers. We expect to hire about 60 of them, but about 20 will leave. And we have about 80 vacancies, give or take. So the real issue there is in the whole department, we'll experience about 40 savings, 40-person savings, which is equal to about $8 million, give or take. So this is the best practice. We're doing better and better as we go through each budget. And we're getting, as I mentioned before, 2 years ago, we had a $25 million surplus. So if we don't account for our attrition, we'll have a surplus again, and we'd rather have the city council determine the budget priorities than wait another year and then do it haphazardly. So attrition savings is normal and customary. It's a best practice. That's the budget. There has been no money removed from the police department. All the money is in the budget. It's the largest recipient of funds. It's over 50% of the general fund. And as I mentioned earlier, the budget's grown substantially more than any other city budget.
No, thank you for that. And I think that all of us, realize that there's been a change in the dynamic of what the statistics have been in the city. Unfortunately, we suffered a very, active fall and early spring and beginning of this year, where we've had a number of more, aggravated assaults, homicides, and so when those things happen, we obviously start looking at the numbers a lot closer and try to make adjustments. So, to the extent that we have an actual number of how many officers we have at any one time, would it be your estimate right now that we're at or near 300 or above or beyond that? Can you kind of give me an idea of where we are on that figure? 308. Okay. 308. So that's, given the size of our city, that we have 350,000 residents or 330 residents, whatever that number is, it's fluid. I know that we have a lot less proportionately than what we had maybe 20, 30 years ago. So that's the concern that I have, is that as the city continues to grow in residents and in population, the number of actual active officers that we have on the beat is less than what we had before. So to the extent that we can leverage any monies that we have, whether in a surplus or whether they're allocated for other purposes. And I know we already allocate a lot, and I think this council has been good about trying to allocate money to parks and open space and in different departments that we know we have a need for general plan and our general plan amendments in our planning department. But this is a real issue right now, and I think that to the extent we can find any way where we can increase the number of officers, and I know that we've gone back to Washington and have been successful in getting cops grants money, and I think we've been able to net about 10 new officers as a result of that. But again, 10 officers for that many is just a very, very small number. So that's my, I guess, maybe plea to you, Mr. City Manager, and my colleagues to see what we can do to revisit this compelling issue.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
And I know we're going to open it up. I do want to emphasize that we reduced the number of officers by 74 in 2012 to about 18% of our officers. We've added about 13%. We've been very successful in getting grants. You emphasized the COPS grant, 2 in a row, 20. We added a downtown patrol. We added some from MMD. We've added police officers every cycle in the budget. So we've added 50 or 60 officers, and we want to get to 100 more. I will emphasize the point you made. I did some research, and we unfortunately have fewer officers now than we had 30 years ago. And we had 1.73 per thousand, and now we have 1.109, and we were down to 0.99. And so at every single community meeting, I've told everybody we don't have enough police officers. It's no secret, and we need more, and we're working really hard to do that. But I've also emphasized, and this is the really important point I would like for you to consider, is that if we only hired police officers, we wouldn't be successful, because we need to do the prevention and the education, the parks, and a balanced approach. But I do want you to know that from my perspective, you're absolutely right. and we are doing everything we can to add police officers, and we'll continue to do that.
And I'm almost through. The last point I would make is you're right. I think we can't police our way out of this, so we talk about other ways to help address this, working with our nonprofit partners, our faith-based partners, our community partners. But at the same time, we have to have some baseline number that we have to protect. And so even if we get down below 300, that's a very, very dangerous number for the number of residents and the type of incidents that we're experiencing right now. If the stats were trending in the opposite direction, I'd say, well, maybe it's not as compelling a need right now. But the trends are going in the opposite direction. So again, my plea is to our staff and maybe our finance director, are there any funds, any residual funds, any surplus funds, anything that we could attach at this point to make a commitment to hire more officers, whether they're new recruits or laterals. But the whole idea is just to increase that number because, as you said, I agree with you, and 100 is about how many we need. We need to be right at about 400 at least. So we're quite a bit away from that. So that's an open question to my colleagues and to staff to see if there's any way that if we have to carve anything else out, I would be willing to look at that, and I'd be willing to entertain a continuance for us to revisit this because it is such an important need. And I can tell you over the weekend, there's a very sad incident of a lunch truck owner that was shot in Cedar Evergreen, and he was in the crossfire of two gangs. And those items and those horrible crimes happen, and it just is it's expressive of what we need to do. So that's my plea to all of you for us to reconsider it and look at this a little closer.
Let me call on Councilor
Mr. Mayor,
Martinez.
yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento, but what I do want to state, and I think me and the city manager don't agree on his practices, is that what I don't understand is that you've asked them to have savings, and we do X amount of positions that we are allocating in the fiscal budget, but then you ask them to do a 7 to 8% attrition so that then we call them surplus, where essentially, to me, is that why are we allocating funds in the fiscal budget to hire when we're actually not even hiring those positions? And so we're kind of misleading the public, in my personal opinion. You're misleading my colleagues, because the intent is that when we allocate X amount of dollars for the police department to hire police officers, and then they don't do it, so now in the tune of $8 million they have given back to you to then equal to a surplus. I don't understand how that equals to a surplus and how that is a best practice. I understand when you're under severe conditions or budgets where you're in financial crisis that you typically would do that. As you've told us in the past, that we don't have any financial crisis. So if we're going to be allocating, X amount of dollars to hire police officers or planners, I would assume that we would make that commitment every way possible to hire those people, those positions. So I don't understand when we say we're going to hire 100 positions and then we only hire 40. To me, I'm like scratching my head and saying, what's going on? The community is asking for more cops. The community is asking for more code enforcement. The community is asking for those things, but we haven't really done it to the full extent. I will give you credit that we have made progress, and so I'm the first to criticize, but also the first to give credit. But we also need to be real about I have a lot of issues with the budget that it could take me 2 hours, and I'm not going to go into it, but specifically on this issue that Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento mentioned, is that it's critical and vital, and we said it was a top priority. When I was on the Public Safety Committee with Councilman Benavides, we made it a priority to hire these cops. We in the past 3 years, I don't know how many cops we hired beyond the grant funding that we received from the COPS program. We keep on saying that we're going to, we're at 308, that we're going to get to 340. At one point we were here and we're 100 officers or so down, but why are we still at 308? I just don't understand. And I get the recruitment process that, our chief wants to do laterals and recruits. And so, that's his strategy, and I get it and I understand it, but I don't know why you continue to take his money away that then limits his ability to hire the people that we said we were going to hire.
We haven't taken money away. We've added to the budget. 2 years ago it was 106, and now it's 120. So we've added tens of millions of dollars to the budget. What I want to emphasize is that when the hiring freeze occurred when I got here, there was no hiring at all. And all of the infrastructure to hire was removed. There was a complete hiring freeze. And then for the first few years, there was normal attrition because people in the police department generally retire on a schedule, 3 or 30, and they leave. And it took us a long time. Once people really believed in the surplus, or people didn't believe in the surplus, we actually had one, and we added to the budget, and we got the COPS grants. And so now we have our arms around that. And this year, and the chief is here, he can correct me, is that we will hire 60 officers, 20 will leave, and we'll have a net 40. Next year we'll have the same thing, and the following year. So we're going to be adding probably 100 officers with the authorized force that we have. But it takes a long time to turn that around when you have a hiring freeze, and we had 74 positions reduced. So maybe I can ask the chief to come up, and he can confirm the hiring that we've done. But the bottom line is we've hired 10 laterals in the last year, so we're doing a combination of the two.
Yes, as a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm swearing in 4 laterals and then 4 academy graduates. We were below 300 officers at one point, so our numbers are trending up. We wish we could move much faster than we're moving, but when the city manager first came on board, we had 1 background investigator, no recruitment element in place at the police department because we simply weren't hiring, so there wasn't a need for that. So we had to ramp up, and you had a department that had zero to no knowledge of recruitment and a recruitment strategy, and that's why tonight you see an item on the agenda to help with some of that marketing that goes along with the recruitment strategy that we now have in place. Now we have 5 background investigators and 2 part-time background investigators, so we are functioning on all cylinders, but so are all the other departments. Everybody's hiring right now, so it is very competitive, but we have been very successful. And like I said, tomorrow I am bringing 8 new police officers on board, half of those being lateral police officers.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
More thoughts or comments on this? If I may, Chief, and may you want to come back up, we used to have a strike force and 2 gang detail units. Is that correct?
We actually have 2 gang details right now, and we don't have a strike force.
But we used to.
Correct.
And how many officers were associated with that strike force?
Anywhere between 8 and 10, depending at what point in time.
And it was a very effective strategy towards fighting gangs and crime in general, because they could come in and assist a very much needed function. Would you agree with that?
They were a tactical unit that were very helpful when we needed suppression support in certain gang areas.
If we had them now, would we have a use for them?
That's something I'd have to look at, because where do those bodies come from? They probably come from patrol, and that's where I get my biggest complaints is, hey, we've been waiting 4 hours for a police officer to get here. So it's a matter of you responding to calls, or do we want 10 officers assigned to a tactical unit?
And I'm not arguing with you at all. What I'm saying is if we had both, we'd be a better department. If we had more bodies so that you could have the strike force back,
if I had 100 more officers,
even 20 more,
it would be great if I could have it all. But I think we have to be realistic, and we'll get there at some point where we can maybe look at some of these specialized units that we may want to create to help in fighting crime.
And what I'm interested in doing is determining, can we accelerate that process? Because if we can, the city's going to be better off. I'm very concerned that over the years it's been very hard to bring the crime down. And we've been doing a great job for a long, long time. But the last 2 or 3 years, the trend is the other way. And the first quarter of this year is one of the worst quarters we've ever had. And I believe part of it is the reality on the streets of the shortage of officers, no strike force, trying to get folks on patrol. Numbers are down. It's just a tough reality for officers out there. And so if we can somehow accelerate that hiring rate, I know you can say, well, if we had 100 more, it'd be better, and I agree with you. But what can we have, and can we have more than what we have here? I think we can. I think we have right now a reserve at $42 million. We have a rainy day fund that maybe is somewhere around $4 million. We have a surplus that's going to be maybe around $2 million or so. And I'd like to explore, can we do anything in any of those categories to further support you in the police department? Because I think it really matters right now. I think it really matters.
And I guess my comment
Go ahead.
is that this isn't a reflection upon, the leadership that we've shown. And I think the city manager's point is well taken. I think before you came here, we did have a hiring freeze in all departments. I mean, just because we couldn't afford to bring anybody on. So all we've done is continue to add. We're just talking about the rate of additional officers that we have has been outpaced by those that have retired. So there's a net reduction in the level of the number of officers. And I think if we can add to those, we have confidence in your ability to allocate those resources and address the problem. But right now you're dealing, I think, with...
what I can tell you is it's actually trending in a positive direction.
Slowly.
So last year we only netted, I want to say 5.
Right.
This year we're going to net 40. So we are moving in the right direction. Is it, like I said, is it fast enough? Absolutely not.
Right. And so, look, to be at the same number of officers as we had 30 years ago, that's a really, really telling statistic to me. It's almost negligent, not on your part, but on ours. As policymakers and as a body that allocates the funds and makes decisions on resources, that doesn't reflect well on us. So that's, I guess, the onus that I'm putting upon us. I know that, the city manager and you can only do so much. If we don't provide you with resources, then, look, shame on us. Because that's the burden that we're saying, and I'm not saying let's put all our money, all our general fund into public safety, but we know that we have a very fragile city. We've known that ever since many of us who've grown up here have known that all our lives.
Right.
But the reality is right now, we're asking you, are there any funds that we can revisit to reapply and apply towards this? And I know this area much less than maybe some of my colleagues. I know Councilman Benavides, who's the chair of public safety, knows this intimately. I would defer to a lot of his background on this because he's familiar with a lot of the resource allocation. But I just think it's such a compelling interest that we need to revisit. So that would be, again, my plea.
I've got more comment, but Sal, you want to...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, City Manager.
If I could, we're going to end up with a bullseye award this year for budget in terms of what our revenue is expected and our expenses, because we've really focused on this best practice. The chief has authority to hire all the officers.
Correct.
So there's no need for a budget adjustment because if he hired all 80 of them, that'd be great, and we have the ability to fund them. The money's already there. What I'm trying to say is that when one person leaves or two arrive, you're going to have normal attrition. And the reason why this is so important is in Santa Ana's past, and I've studied it, it's much different from the last city I worked for, people have a budget that is not realistic in terms of what's going to be spent. And then as the year progresses, you end up in a downturn. They start rating that budget, and the money's not there, and pretty soon they go through it, and they end up exactly where you were before, and you won't have any money available. So the budgeting and the attrition budgeting is really important to stay on top of it. And mid-year through the year, we come back to the council and say, hey, we do need to go into a reserve very slightly, and the economic uncertainty funds are there, Mayor, as you mentioned. They're going to be very, very valuable because right now, we're being very conservative, but there will be a cycle where this cycle's down, and we'll be ready, and other people won't be. But I want to emphasize to the council that we are going to apply for COPS grants again.
We've already applied.
We already have, but we have authority to hire all those officers. Every one of those officers we want to hire.
I've got more questions, but Sal, go ahead.
No, and I agree with Councilmember Sarmiento, and I think that as we discuss this, which I think is a good conversation to have, we also have to put things into perspective. And that is our CalPERS as well. So every time we hire a new person, there's also a retirement that we have to look at. And the one item here in the state of California that's going to affect cities is that CalPERS component. And so so I'm very careful when people say, "Hey, let's go into we have this nice healthy reserve." I think we also have to look at that we have this is longevity here. We have to look at I do not want to go back to where, I mean, we worked extremely hard, lost sleep, because we thought we were going to go bankrupt at one time. And it was this council that worked very hard. We made adjustments here in the city, brought in new people who knew how to get us out of that and move us in the right direction. At the same time, I do agree that we need officers out on the street. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and that was a rough time in the city to live. It's interesting when I tell people today, I said, you know, our city, even right now at this moment, is a lot safer than it was when I was in high school. And that's because of some of the creative policing that our city has done. But there's a responsible way to go about it. I do believe that we have to make this a priority to increase our staffing. A city our size should have many more officers than we do on the street, but like you said, money is also with that. So I just want to say that, you know, I think we're all speaking in the same direction, and I just want to also make sure whenever we talk about our budget or our reserve, that reserve is not something that you just start tossing around, because we're going to end up in 5 years with nothing in hand and no way to get out. And you know what? We might have gotten through that once. I don't know if we can get through that a second time.
Councilor Martinez.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to get off the budget issue, but it's a tie to it is the CIP, and I pay very close attention to this, because when you look at the amount of dollars associated with this in comparison to the general fund budget, nowhere in comparison. And so, Fred, I want to thank our Public Works Director for moving us in a more transparent way of how we actually look at our CIP. But something that I did want to make mention, because I had the opportunity to meet with our local laborers just the other day, and as we were talking about, all the work that we're doing here locally as a city, this council has been very supportive of labor. And not only our bargaining units, but just in general, our philosophy has always been to be, supportive of business, but also being supportive of our trades, making sure that we're able to bring balance to how we spend our funds and how we allocate our funds. We have a lot of the local laborers here who are unemployed, and most of our contracts with CIP go to private industry. And a lot of those dollars are not being reinvested back into our community. We have to pay prevailing wage anyhow. And then also the California state law, SB 7, where I was definitely opposed to, if you all recall, that we had to provide more dollars for prevailing wage, that we're now giving $300,000 additional dollars to GPS for graffiti coding. So what I want to tell my colleagues is that if we continue to say that we're supportive in our philosophy, that how can we, when you look at the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in CIP, and you'll see here today in our agenda, and I pulled a lot of the items out, whether it be slurry seal, whether it be reconstruction of our roads, our sewers, our sanitation. Those are hundreds of millions of dollars that we are allocating to private industry, and rightfully so. But labor and trade should also be able to compete. They should be able to compete for these dollars. And so I want to ask our Public Works Director and our city manager that how can we start having those kinds of conversations so that they have the ability, when we are doing bids, that they could actually compete for this. Because I asked them, do you know that there are certain bids out there, whether it be our sewers, whether it be our streets, are you aware? And they're not. So there hasn't been any of that kind of conversation. So I brought it up to them, and I want to bring it up here to our colleagues as we continue to approve these kinds of huge infrastructure projects, that we need to have balance and equity.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I believe as part of our negotiation with some of the units, we actually agreed to look at items that could be for managed competition, so they could actually bid against the private sector, and I agreed to that, and I'm all for it. And we were going to have a list, something I'm very familiar with on sanitation and garbage collection. It's a best practice. Everybody sharpens their pencils, and we should allow our employees to compete with the people we contract for, and so we're very supportive of that.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. Chief, I just wanted to go back a moment to the discussion we were having earlier and maybe ask, you said we have money in the budget to hire 60 new hires. That's correct, yes?
Actually, we have money in the budget to hire more than that.
How many more?
I think we're at 373, Robert? Is that? 373, and we have 308, so if you do the math there, it's 60 plus.
If we wanted to, and we have 80 vacancies, correct?
Well, if we have 308 in the seat, 373 minus 308 will give you the number of vacancies.
So it's the same number that you want to hire, that's the
Correct.
number of vacancies.
That's what I'm authorized to hire. I'm not authorized to hire any more than that.
And if we wanted to end up at that number at the end of the year, 373, at a maximum we're going to be at 353 because we're going to lose 20. Correct?
Sure.
Well, no, tell me. I mean, you have some number that you think is going to retire.
Well, I think you're starting to get into the analysis of it. If we want to sit down and go over the numbers, I can.
I want to make sure you have more money, and because I don't think you have enough money to do everything you want to do.
Let me just interject. We don't, Mayor. We don't have enough money. We have enough money to hire the people that are authorized and the attrition that will occur. If we do more than that, then we have two choices. We have to cut another area, or we have to go into the reserve. The reserve requires a supermajority vote. I think that was designed for a crisis. I don't think we're in a crisis.
I'm not talking about the reserves. I'm talking about the rainy day fund, which is money in addition to the reserves. We have $42 million in reserves. Rainy day fund has about $4 million. That's addition. And also we're going to have a surplus, maybe a couple million or so, we believe. And I believe we could allocate some of those, or consider allocating some of that money to get you additional officers to make up for the loss.
So it's a policy decision. I want to go on record to indicate that the economic uncertainty fund is really important, because if you have a downturn, rather than cutting services and freezing positions like we did before, we have in the budget a 2.3% increase, but it could go down more than that. The economic reserve uncertainty fund that we have in there would actually absorb a 1.3 negative. So the budget would have to be off by about 3.9% before we'd have to go into the reserve. So that's our conservative budget. If you do what you're recommending, Mayor, that's your decision. Could $2 or $3 million. It would it's about $200,000 an officer. That'd get you another 15 officers. But bear in mind, then, if we do have that problem next year, we would have to go to the reserve rather than the economic uncertainty fund. So it's a policy.
So economic is on top of the reserves, and the surplus is on top of the rainy day fund, let's call it.
And realistically, the 60 that we're looking to hire, that's based on our current capacity of 5 background investigators, full-time background investigators, and 2 part-time background investigators, and also the whole recruitment aspect in terms of applications received, how many people get through the various stages. So that's what the 60 is based on. It's based on the capacity that we can currently handle. And to increase that capacity in our background section, then I would have to pull somebody from patrol services, likely, or investigations to get in that unit and get them trained up. So it's a capacity issue as well.
Boy, I just know that I really don't like the trends that I'm seeing. We've done a lot better in the past, and I think this council today has to do everything we possibly can to make sure we arrest the rise in crime, and I'm trying to find ways that we can do that today. Not a year from now, not the way off in the future, but today.
But we're doing that. I mean, there's the trend is moving in that direction. So
David?
I'm confused.
Well, I agree with a lot of the comments, and there are concerns. We are working very diligently to be able to make those hires. Hiring 60 this last year, I believe it's as a result of what Councilwoman Martinez mentioned from a couple years ago. We were talking about, even at that point, what can we do to ensure that we're being very proactive about recruiting the right and hiring the right candidates. And we see it throughout all of our patrol vehicles out there, just promoting the Joint Santa Ana PD. We're on the web, a number of different ways. I know tonight part of the consideration is for us to enhance that even more. But my question to you, Chief, is through the measures that we're taking, will we be able to, do you anticipate, will we be able to hire and fill all of those positions? Would it really, it seems like we're trending in the right direction, but it still is some time and to go through all of those all of the applicants. If we had a lot more, I mean, everybody could maybe use more money, right? Any department, but if we had much more money, would we really be able to hire that many more officers? Are we doing everything we can to be able to fill even the positions that are allocated this go around?
I would be more than happy to take more money.
Right.
And
Sure.
I do believe we're doing everything that we can. And tonight's a big step. There's no other police agency in Orange County that uses a marketing company to take it to the next level. So I'm trying to set us apart from all the other agencies. I go to the academy graduations every month. And everybody's hiring. That stage is full of police chiefs, all hiring out of the same pool. So we are trying to do everything that we can. And tonight we're trying to take it to that next level.
Right.
But if you give me more money, I'll definitely give it a shot. I'll see what I can do.
All right. I'm sure you would. Thank you.
What I'd like to do, if I may, is go, based on your last statement, if we could get you some more money. Maybe it's $2 million, maybe it's some that you'd like to give it a shot because maybe you can, help the city out.
Sure.
So under that, what I'd like to consider is if we could go for a 2-week continuance to work on trying to figure out where can we get additional money. I think it's potentially there in the surplus. It's a public policy decision, so that would be my motion.
We don't need 2 weeks, Mayor. You can do it tonight. We have $2 million available in the budget for the Economic Uncertainty Fund, and that's where the money would come from. So if you want to move it from there to this, you can do that. That would be my answer in 2 weeks.
May I comment? Because when and I worked very closely with Robert and Fran when we decided to do the Reserve Policy and Economic Uncertainty Fund. When I got elected to the City Council, we didn't have anything of the sort, and working with them, and at the time I think it was Kathy Standiford, we were looking at their best practices, and when we made that decision to do that Economic Uncertainty Fund, it was for specific purposes. And so again, I said no to you, Mr. City Manager, when you try to use that money to use it for the SARTIC to do improvements, and you did that in a way that you shouldn't have. And here today, Mr. Mayor, I cannot tell you today that I can be supportive of you using those funds.
I'm talking about the surplus.
You're talking about a different fund. You're talking about the reserve fund.
The city manager said
it's not what I'm
that he
talking
would
about.
have to use economic uncertainty funds, and I'm not
But that's
willing
not
to
the
support
reserve.
that.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're not talking about that.
Well,
They're talking about
for
reserves.
clarification, we were recommending the use of the Economic Uncertainty Fund for the SARTEC, and that's what's available if you want to use it for public safety. So
and I said no to that. And
I just want to make sure that the way I
But that's
understood.
different. That's different from the reserve, the money in the reserve, which is the 20% of our budget that we have. And I think I see the city attorney's head shaking. That's restricted money. We can't.
We have never recommended use of the reserve.
Okay, so that's different from the economic uncertainty fund.
Economic Uncertainty Fund, there's some money in there, there's going to be some money added to it, and we were hoping to get to about $6 million. I don't want to alarm people, but nobody really knows what's going to happen next year.
Right.
And that money would be readily available in the event of a downturn without having to cut services, furloughs, all the things you all experienced before. And if you take that money for an action now, it won't be available next year. That's all.
And what I'm suggesting is that there's going to be a surplus of approximately $2 million. We haven't determined that number yet, but this council today or in 2 weeks could decide to allocate that $2 million, call it. Maybe it's 1.8, maybe it's 2.2, whatever it is. We could say put that in there and reduce the the monies that we have right now that we're saying are going to be attrition, and tell the chief hire whatever more officers you can with that money. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, there's a motion on the floor. If there's a second, we can vote on it, but I have...
Is there a second to my motion?
I still want to comment.
Yeah, I'm going to comment. I don't think it's the best policy decision when we just speak out in this fashion without having any data in front of us. without looking to what the true costs are going to be, just to throw someone money. I wouldn't do that with anyone. Just here you go, have $50, see what you do with it. We really don't know that, so we have to make educated decisions. If this was so important, it should have been brought to us at the last meeting so that we had ample time to look over the data. But just to bring it in at the 12th hour, I'm not good with it.
I'm sorry. Didn't I have the floor next? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just waiting. The conversation be on that side, not so much on this side. And a couple of things. I definitely think that there should be a balance of not only enforcement, but of opportunities for our young people. Keep them engaged in activities so they're not off the streets. I think a lot of the violence that you see today is the results of 7-8 years ago when all the nonprofits and all the sports programs from the cities were being cut out and our kids didn't have any options. Our kids that were 7, 8, 9 years old that are now 17, 20 years old are now engaged in all of these activities because they didn't have these programs. So I'm absolutely supportive of law enforcement, and we definitely need as many as we could possibly get. It sounds like our chief has a plan to fill that particular gap. But I think the component that we're not speaking about are our young folks and giving them engaged in something and stopping them before they get involved with negative activities. At the same time, on a different note, it looks like our chief has a plan to move forward. I'm not supportive of moving any dollars out of any one of our reserve funds, that's all. Thank you.
Angie.
I also wanted to say that with respect to the economic uncertainty funds, I think it's important that we don't touch those funds because we don't know what the future holds. And I think if we pay out of the $2 million or whatever the surplus is going to be, how are we going to sustain that? How long is that going to pay for these police officers in the long term? So I would feel, I would be very cautious to do that.
If I could, Mayor, that's an excellent point. The best time to save money is when you have it. You can't save it when you don't have it, and we have it now. And we have added in the budget proposal, for example, last year we added a police lieutenant, 7 patrol officers, 1 special project sergeant, 4 downtown officers, 10 cops grants, 15, 16, 23 officers in 1 year, which is great. This year we're adding more in the budget. But we really do believe we will have a projected surplus. We don't have it yet, but we have a projected surplus. We think it's going to be about $1.5 to $2 million, and we believe that we're recommending the council can do what they want, of course, but we really think that if we're going to be prepared for a economic uncertainty, now's the time to do it when we have a little extra money.
First of all, is there a second on my motion?
Well, there's your motion is to continue it. I was going to make another motion.
Go ahead.
To see if we could dedicate that projected budget surplus towards the hiring of additional officers. If there is no surplus, if there is nothing, then there's not much that we can allocate, if any. But I guess what I wanted to just also say is, let's just say there is a downturn. There are triggers in our reserve policy of those $40 million that we have that we can attach some of that money and we could allocate some of that money. And I remember because I helped, we all worked on this with Francisco and with Robert when we were going through this, but we can open that fund up in the event of the scenario that you're talking about, Mr. City Manager. We don't want that to happen, and we don't want to do that because that helped us get to the bond rating we're at. And
so we will know in September. If we have the surplus, we're very confident that we'll have the $1.5 to $2 million. If you want to dedicate that to accelerating and hiring officers, that's something you can do today.
And that's what I would like.
That would be my motion.
I'll second the motion. That's what I would like.
Could I comment?
Yes.
And I guess this is where my process, mentality comes in, is that if we are going to, and I'm supportive of that surplus funds, but last year we took a process that I still wasn't favorable of, and with the stars and all, how we were going to get to do the surplus dollars. We all had to put stars, what was more important than the other. That was a flawed process. Here, again, we have no process for this so-called surplus. I don't believe that we have a surplus, but you all think it's a surplus. But with that being said, I will want, if you all decide to use those so-called surplus dollars, how would the chief use those funds specifically? And so if I were to be supportive, because I don't agree that we have a surplus, if I were to be supportive, if the money did exist, I think that those funds should be allocated to possibly that strike force team or that other specialty unit. We don't have a vice unit today. Is that correct, Mr. Chief? That's correct. So so when you look at the not having a vice unit and the drug issues that we're dealing with, which I think a lot of the activity that's going out there is not only gang violence, but has a lot to do with drugs, prostitution, on and so forth, that we need to make sure to have a vice unit. So I would ask and implore my colleagues, if you all decide to move in that direction, that the strike force or a vice unit is the consideration for those funds, and it's very important that we do that in that time period, because we have not had those special
If the maker of the motion accepts that amendment, I would as well.
I can't accept that amendment. I don't want to second guess. I don't think it's our place to second guess the chief of police on how he's going to allocate his resources. I think if he comes back to us, or if we see that there is some need, and again, I'm deferring to the chair and the committee on public safety that studies these issues a lot closer. If they come back to this council for a recommendation for us to make that suggestion, I think that's beyond the scope of what we can do as a council, is to dictate what the police chief does with his resources.
All right, so we have...
He should at least provide us a plan. How can we vote on something just allocating that money without a plan of how he's going to utilize those resources? And that's all I'm saying, is I'm providing options for him to consider, but ultimately, I'm not going to give anybody $1.5 million or $2 million and go do what you have without having a plan. So I would not be able to be supportive. I am supportive of supporting and giving dollars to the police department, but with the chief coming back with a plan of how he's going to utilize those funds.
Up until 5 minutes ago, he didn't know he was going to have these monies, so how can he come up with a plan about what he's going to do with it?
And he's short 80 positions, remember that. He is short positions. Yes, Councilman Benavides.
As Councilman or Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento has referenced, I've had the opportunity to serve on the Public Safety Committee for some time and serve as chair and meet with the Chief of Police on a regular basis. There definitely is a need to be able to bolster the department. We do have, clearly, in part of what we've been discussing, there is a shortage on officers. One of the basic needs is the basic calls for service, having officers out there on patrol. So definitely would agree that if there were to be any additional funds and resources, the police chief is being very intentional about increasing the community-oriented policing as a strategy, strengthening that strategy within the department, ensuring that we have a way by which our officers are deployed so that they are more able to respond to local, smaller districts, so that there is just a better patrolling system. More officers would definitely aid. However, at the same time, there are still a lot of questions. I think we have set amount. We have raised the amount within the existing budget to ensure that we're going to be able to hire quite a few more officers. In fact, today we're taking the steps to potentially provide more resources so that we're more intentional about ensuring that we have that we're strengthening our recruitment. I would say if we have a surplus it sounds like it's going to be identified in September. Let's go ahead and revisit the conversation in September. There have been other needs that have been raised. Again, I know that there's a need in the area of public safety. I serve on that committee. I've chosen to live in a neighborhood that has a lot of challenges, and frankly, over the last couple of weeks, there's been numerous times that I've had to call in because of incidences of gunfire and other things, and I don't want to highlight and focus on those challenges within our city. There are many cities that are struggling with those types of challenges. However, what I'm saying is that there are those needs, but there are a lot of other needs as well, such as some of the ones that Councilman Reyna mentioned, and so I think it would be incumbent upon us to take a step back, look at the full picture, all of the needs within the city, look at how we strategically can allocate funds to be able to, again, address the big picture and have things work in tandem so that we're being able to provide longer-term solutions that will benefit all of our neighborhoods and the community as a whole, and address public safety from numerous angles, maybe not just suppression alone. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, Angie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. We're discussing projected funds, projections right now. So when we actually have them, can we just bring them back with actual numbers so that we can from there talk to our chief, see what he feels would be best, where we would spend it best with some kind of plan. I think it would be easier to do that than to just say, let's allocate here, let's allocate there. Plus, it's just a projection. We don't know exact numbers yet. So I would make a motion to bring it back once we have the actual figure.
Well, we have a motion standing right now. Why don't we take that on?
Okay.
Let me, if I may, let me just ask a question. We're already there.
He had a substitute.
Just a question, that is, look, right now, what we have in the budget through attrition is already a big unknown. That's a guesstimate as to how much we believe we're going to attrition over the year. We'll probably have to look at it 6 months in, 9 months in, see if we hit that number. If the chief is hiring more because he's got this recruiting company and it's going great, it could be that we have to adjust something throughout the year. All I'm suggesting is that if we have a surplus, that surplus should today be allocated. So as it develops, we don't have to revisit it. Simply the attrition number, which is almost $9 million that we're expecting to save in unfilled positions, wouldn't be $9 million. It'd be a little bit less. So look, enough said. Why don't we call for the question?
What is the question?
The way I understand the motion that's been made, the substitute motion is to go ahead and approve the budget, but identify the $1.5 million in projected surplus, 1.5 to 2,
correct,
with a focus on public safety. But I think it would come back to the council for further identification.
It would, but the policy and the desire is stated today.
So that's the motion.
I'll accept those amendments.
All right.
All right. Those in favor for that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? No. Motion carries. All right. So now we're on to the next item. Madam City Clerk, what is the next item? 20? 28? Who had that?
Mayor. Okay, I'll be quick. So 28 is appropriation adjustment on the amendment for scope of contract for local street service seal. So I had a question. And I see we have a whole list, so I'm not sure if our public works manager could come up as we go down the list here. So we're doing a slurry slope project here, and I have a question. It's not a lot of money, but we're doing with All American Asphalt. In the past, we've had some issues, and I don't know if it was American Asphalt or R.J. Noble, but there have been resident complaints in the past. I think, and Fred, you were not here, but there were some issues, and so I'm not sure if we've evaluated, the companies that we've had that have been doing our slurry seal or our reconstruction on our roads. And so, because I see a lot of funds that we're allocating here today, and that's why I pulled them all, is because I want to make sure that that we have responsible contractors, too, that they're doing the job, because we are paying lots of money. And so, and if we had any resident complaints in the past with the slurry seal or the reconstruction of any of our streets over the past year and a half.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez. I haven't seen a significant complaint. The only things I've seen is some of these contractors are not communicating well with the residents well ahead of what they're doing, and this is something that we're working on with our staff to make sure we supplement that and we have that communication going. Other than that, neither RJ Noble or All American, I don't recall any major incidents.
And I just asked because it came up, and I don't know, William, it was 3-4 years ago that issue surfaced, and so here we are going back again, re-slurry reconstruction on some. I'm wanting to make sure again that we have a responsible contractor, that they're being attentive to our residents, and that if there have been any complaints, what's the remedy? Because again, when we're dealing with contractors, sometimes our residents don't know that they're contractors. They think that they're city employees, and issues arise. And I'm just wanting to make sure, because not just in this agreement, but there's further down, there's additional funding, and that's for RJ Noble. And so I don't know what contractor it was. Was it RJ Noble or it was American Asphalt that we had the issue with the last time?
We have had issues in the past. It did involve All-American Asphalt. However, we did work out under warranty for All-American to come back and repair some of those streets. We can issue through Fred a report as to what repairs were taking place over the last year to make good on some of those streets that weren't performing well. In addition, I know that we know about a project on Edinger that we've had some issues with. That's a different contractor, and we're going to come back and make good on that contract. I believe it involves grinding and putting in a new overlay. So and essentially making the contractor do the work again.
Fantastic.
Without any cost extra.
Yeah, and I just bring these issues up because they have been here in the past, and so I'm not trying to be a stickler towards the contractor, but we pay a lot of money. Our residents expect, a standard, and we on the council expect a standard, and we hope that that contractor will fulfill it, and if something does go wrong, that they do repair it without charging us.
Yeah, the residents definitely deserve first-class service. They're paying the first-class amount of money for this work. Certainly, we expect the same from the contractors, and we make sure that we pursue that.
Great, thank you. And I move the item. There's comment.
Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second with
All right, go ahead, comment.
More than anything, just to echo some of the words of Councilwoman Martinez. When we went through and did quite a bit of work a few years ago, there were some concerns that were presented by members of the community, by residents. I remember one particular in the Mid-Cities neighborhood, and I would appreciate Fred and William a report on some of those concerns that were expressed and repairs that had to go back and be done. I believe RJ Noble actually may have been the contractor in the Mid-Cities neighborhood, and I remember going out there various times, going through several streets that had just recently been repaired, and they were already showing signs of needs for improvement and for repairs. And we did get into some issues where I believe we had to have even council involved. So some of those same contractors are coming back. Obviously, that's their area of expertise. That's what they do. They're going to be submitting bids, and we want to make sure to get select the strongest and best bidder that is going to provide us good quality service. To the degree that those items were addressed responsibly, we shouldn't eliminate the vendor. Sometimes issues happen. However, at the same time, we need to make sure to hold people to a high quality standard. And if they were not responsible in previous work, we need to make sure to eliminate them and only bring in people who are going to, companies that are going to adequately provide high quality service for the major dollars of our taxpayers, residents that we're paying out in these contracts. So I will go ahead and move the item, but I want to make sure that we do follow up.
Thank you for those comments. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Those opposed,
Mr. Mayor,
motion carries.
23A
Yes.
is exactly the same thing. This is now on the Warner Industrial Community, and this is RJ Noble in the tune of almost $4 million. And so, again, as Councilman Benavides pointed, just making sure that, we want to make sure that, they continue to bid and contract, but assuring that if there are issues that we can remedy those immediately. And so I just look to you,
So
Fred,
with
and
that-
the city manager to continue to push that issue. And I move the item.
All right, there's a motion.
Second.
Those in favor, or comment again? Go ahead.
I'm going to be supportive just with comment, just that these comments of the council, that you please convey these back to the contractors. We're awarding these major contracts, but please make sure that...
Maybe send us a copy of the memo. If there's a memo, when you convey it, just send us a copy, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Mr.
Madam
Mayor, the
Clerk,
next
go ahead.
item is 25A. And
How many more M's do you have?
I have a lot more, Mr. Mayor.
That's
so
all
bear
right.
with
I just
me.
wanted-
I'm trying
I'll just call on you instead of the clerk.
I'm trying to be quick, but
Go ahead.
I'm also, these are
Go ahead,
issues
go
that are
ahead.
concern to me and to the community.
It's important. Go
so
ahead.
25A is the Second Amendment, and that's just wanting to thank Francisco and I did just have a quick question, Francisco. What's the community's benefit as it pertains to us using credit cards and having that system in place? And then two, possibly the potential burden of us using credit card services, now us probably having a cap and the residents having to pay more for using a credit card versus coming here directly and paying with a check. And I only asked that question because we have a lot of residents that are still now transitioning to using credit cards and doing this online, but they have been accustomed because we have given them a break, and now we're possibly going to add a cap, which if we go over that according to the report, they may have to pay a little extra.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. What we've tried to accomplish here is identify those individuals or vendors who utilize a credit card primarily to gain points, if you will, which then burdens the city of Santa Ana in terms of total transaction costs. So we've identified a threshold of $5,000 as the basic floor, if you will, that we will not accept an individual using a credit card because that really costs the city of Santa Ana a lot of money. And really in regards to total transactions, if you notice in the report, there's only 120 of those transactions that occur annually. What we've done is maintain, though, the moratorium for the balance of individuals who use credit cards. Ever since we've applied the moratorium, it's allowed our residents, if you will, and business owners to actually pay more on time, and they've actually enjoyed that because previously, our residents are primarily a cash-based community, or at times cannot have access to checks. So the credit card component has really been very beneficial to them. Obviously, because of that, we've experienced an increase in transaction costs because more people are using it. But we've heard nothing but kind of like gratitude for the fact that we actually accept credit cards.
Thank you, Fran, and I just want to make mention that because there are times where residents do bring this up, and again, it's trying us to modernize and provide more options of how they can make payments to their utilities here in the city. And so I just want to thank you and thank our staff that we're continuing to move forward with technology, and hopefully we'll be able to integrate now that we have our new Chief Information Officer, that we will all be able to communicate, because technology really is the game changer for cities. We need to be connected with our residents, and one way is to give them the benefit to make payment via credit card when they, instead of them coming here and paying in cash. As you mentioned, for the most likelihood they will pay cash, so it's not really good for us to be in that kind of business of always transacting with cash. So I'm glad that we're in the credit card business and helping them. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, I move the item forward.
I'll second it. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Go ahead,
Great,
Michelle.
Mr. Mayor. Next is 25E, and this is for, the amendment for the pressure washing services for the city event. And Gerardo, thank you for being here. Gerardo, I wanted to just ask, and maybe this is not a question that you could answer, just how the funds that we're getting. And I noticed that we're using Civic Center funds, and I think sometimes, and hopefully my colleagues will pay attention to this, is that the amount of Civic Center funds that we're using for this, and I'm very supportive of this item because I think we need to be clean and green, and when we have festivities, they need to be clean. But the allocation and how we're using these funds, Mr. City Manager, and maybe you'll be able to answer this. How much money do we have through the Civic Center account to utilize and expend with these kinds of infrastructure or services? Because here, I saw in the report that we are allocating funds from the Civic Center fund to do this to do this pressure washing. So I'm wanting to know.
So I want, Ron, you can correct me, but
Okay.
I believe the Civic Center budget typically is around, for maintenance, general overall maintenance, not just pressure washing, is around 1.3? Right. $1.3 million. And that, as you know, comes from both city and the county.
County, correct.
The joint powers. And then this particular amendment is not just Civic Center because it's also for the events. So we pressure wash after the big events, and so there's some general fund money, if I'm not mistaken. So that's part of the reason we're amending this agreement, because we have to pressure wash after the food vendors and all that stuff in big events.
Yeah, and I just ask, and again, I'm supportive of this issue, and it's coming before us, but, knowing that we have $1.3 million, when we look at the Civic Center, it's pretty disgusting looking, and what are we doing to allocate these $1.3 million to continue to address the quality of life of those folks that are living out there? It smells, and on and so forth, but here we are using funds to do for events, but we're not how much of that $1.3 million is being allocated to maintain the Civic Center?
You just voted on the Midori Gardens today, a little while ago, and now all of that is to part of the 1.3 million to do the maintenance, the
Maintenance
trash.
or landscape?
Maybe the best.
Both trash and landscape maintenance, both.
Well,
I think the best answer is to get you the report.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you'll see a very positive trend in the last few years. We have substantially increased the Civic Center budget, millions of dollars.
But the Civic Center has worsened.
It hasn't.
It hasn't. Have you not been out there, Mr. City Manager?
I walk out there all the time. I'm explaining to you that if you look at the amount of increase in pressure washers, increase in cycles, increase in landscaping, if you look at the budget, it's grown substantially, and the levels of service. Now, we have a lot of people out there, and there's been more of a concentration, but the services and the amount of money spent has increased, and we'll get that to you, and then you can make
So all I'm saying is that this money is a joint powers agreement between the city and the county of Orange to utilize for the Civic Center. So I asked a question that why isn't the majority of these funds being spent on the Civic Center? Why are we using some of these funds for events? And if we're not using those funds for events, or is it for the pressure washing for the Civic Center?
The Civic Center budget is not doing pressure washing for events.
Zero.
It's a contract. The specific general fund money is for events. The Civic Center budget, all $1.3 million is being used for maintenance. Maintenance is a variety of different things. It's pressure washing. It's picking up the trash.
So what you're telling me in this item that the same contractor is doing for both?
Yes, it's the same contractor doing pressure washing in the downtown area, pressure washing in the Civic Center. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, but that's what I wanted to know. Mr. City Manager, if I could please get a report of the Civic Center funding and how that money is being allocated, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Motion to
That's a motion.
approve. Oh, second.
Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Michelle?
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is 25F, which is the salvage and demolition of services at 710, 714, and 720. We had a couple of residents that came before us to speak on this item. I wanted to pull this item to see if we can continue this item for 6 months so that there are various options that we can entertain. And I'm not sure, Mr. Moet, if you have provided us any options beyond the salvaging and demolishing of how we can use that property. And so I would just ask my colleagues to see if we can continue the item to look at some other viable options.
Just make a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue for 6 months, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to make a comment, but I don't know if there's any going to be.
I'll second, but could it be less than 6 months? Or?
So let's make it 3 months then.
All right. Go ahead.
I actually asked for Parks and Rec directors provide a little bit of background. We also received a memo from Community Development Agency housing manager with regard to those three properties and the request of the Lacey neighborhood. I know it's been some time. It's been at least a couple of years, just going back even for a little bit of historical. I think some of this information was in the report.
So a couple of council members were at a meeting over a year ago in April 2015 with 40 residents from Lacey, and there were 2 council members from the city of Santa Ana, and they were asking for that land, 0.43 acres, to be converted to an open space park. The president of Lacey neighborhood called me yesterday and said that they're still wanting the open space for the park. They haven't changed. It's Jose Leal. He called me to let me know about that, and I believe council received a letter also on that issue from a variety of different groups today or the last few days. So you also voted this last April, about a couple months ago, to use $900,000 to purchase the land from the successor agency, and it's now owned by the city of Santa Ana. And you also approved in January the zone change from residential to open space. It was approved by the Planning Commission. There's been lots of different meetings, lots of meetings with the neighborhood and community, and so you know there was also one of the requests was can we salvage the trees, and I believe we can, and I think we should salvage the trees. Because so far the dialogue with the neighborhood has been that they want an open space. They know they have across the street the community center, Garfield Community Center, 10,000 square feet, and a half a block is the fitness exercise park. So we've gotten feedback from Latino Health Access that they really want open space, especially for adolescents, for teens in particular, because they feel that there's a need. So that's been, I'm just kind of sharing the history of the dialogues that started back. It even started when the Station District, if you recall, in 2010.
Right, and if I can interrupt you, Mr. Morton, thank you for that background history, but it does go quite a ways back. It goes back a number of years when the Station District and the apartments there, Triada, were in concept, and you remember we went through numerous meetings, and one of the key requests of the neighborhood was community center and open space. In fact, that whole block was something that we had committed to as a city that we were going to pursue for open space. Redevelopment went away, and it changed the situation for us. But we were able to secure those 3 lots as a way of, or those 3 homes as a way of getting started. Those homes have, at this point, over the last number of years, they've continued to deteriorate, become public nuisance, become very dangerous. We have a lot of children around there. There's an elementary school right across the street, transients, a number of different issues and concerns that have arisen. At this point, we have been able to build the community center, fulfill part of our commitment as a council. The next is to be able to provide that open space. Unfortunately, it's limited at this point to those, just that corner and those 3 lots. That home, there is one home there. There's some correspondence that we have received. Although it is, there are definitely some architectural features that definitely I can appreciate, and many I think would appreciate. If we didn't have a community center right across the street, literally, I think it definitely would make sense to preserve a building there to be able to potentially make use as a community center. The fact that we have the community center across the street, the fact that the neighborhoods, that the residents are requesting open space, the fact that was a promise that we made years ago, I think it's incumbent upon us to be able, and just the safety factors alone make it so that it makes sense to be able to clear out that land as soon as possible. Preserving the trees, that part of history, I think if there's a way to be able to preserve those fruit trees and incorporate them into the new park space, I think definitely makes sense. I would, and we've had some conversation. I think Councilwoman Martinez and you and I have been in some of those meetings with some of the residents. Given that background and the experience that we've all gone through with the residents there and the background that Mr. Moet has referenced, I'd prefer to not make a substitute motion. I prefer to have the motion actually maybe be reconsidered to move forward. But it would be definitely difficult to be able to move.
Yeah, Councilman Benavides,
hold out.
and I'm in agreement, and I made the promise. I'm just wanting to make sure that we have viable options. So beyond the open space, it's not just a park, but can we do community gardens? Can we do all that other stuff? Yeah. And so I'm wanting to make sure that we've had those kinds of conversations and that they're documented, because there were times when we were at the Garfield Center along with you that people said they wanted a basketball court, they wanted soccer, they wanted a skate park, they wanted a swimming pool, they wanted a parking lot. So now, and then there's people that wanted community gardens, and so now there's all this energy as it pertains to environment.
You're absolutely right, Councilwoman. There's a long list, and what I told the president of Lacey Neighborhood yesterday when he called me, that as soon as we have clearance, if the contract is not approved, CDA will have to reissue an RFP. And also, we're going to continue to spend quite a bit of money. He can tell you, Judson can tell you, $75,000 in maintaining those houses. Mm-hmm. But what I told the president of Lacey Neighborhood is absolutely, once we know that we can have 0.43 acres with some fruit trees, we're going to talk about the feasibility of a skate park, the feasibility of a swimming pool, a community garden and all that, and then we're going to have our usual process that we do. If you remember those many meetings we had with the neighborhood around Roosevelt Walker just to get a sense of what they wanted, and that's the same thing we did with Willard. We have lots of outreach meetings, but we don't really start the outreach in earnest until we know we have the canvas.
And I guess I only bring this up because we were supposed to do this in community engagement, strategy, and I know Hassan from planning has taken over, but it's just been focused on our planning. We were supposed to have a comprehensive approach. Not enough money was allocated, and I'm not sure if my colleagues recall, we said we were going to invest in a community engagement strategy. There's no community engagement strategy, and so it's shameful that here we are with all these other plans. Everyone continues to do their own engagement. Gerardo, you've done a phenomenal job of being able to bring people together, have these kinds of conversations, but there's always this lack of communication, sometimes not from you, but from others, that we have these groups coming to us. And so I would just implore you that I'm willing to move forward with the item, that we continue to include Downtown Inc. We include to have these kinds of conversations of of what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
There. I'll move the item, Councilman Benavides. The original item.
I'll second.
The original, yeah.
Just a quick,
Go ahead.
Quick question on this, and a comment, I guess, more than a question, is that, when Debbie McEwen stepped up to the microphone and she was pulled aside from the city attorney, and it was explained to her that she had signed an agreement, I guess, and signed off on as a member of Friends of Lacey. That was something that I had completely forgotten. And all those discussions that we had, and it does go way back to Triada. It does go way back to the Station District, and probably before many of our new directors and city managers. So
I was here.
And you notwithstanding, Mr. Director, but I did get a phone call from Jeff Dickman, who I respect quite a bit because he's a preservationist. He's somebody who's active in the community. He's a resident, and he's somebody who I respect, have a lot of respect for. That part of the conversation we didn't have, that this was discussed through the Friends of Lacey and some very active members of the community as well that belong to that signed off. So I think this conversation has been had, I guess, based upon that agreement. Nobody likes to see historic structures destroyed. I live in a home that's very, old and historic, and that could have been one of those buildings that was demolished as well. But I guess the point is that we also have a compelling interest by that neighborhood that has an expectation to have open space, and whatever that space becomes, whether it becomes community gardens, whether it becomes anything else, I think just creating that open space. I don't know how many years later it's important, because I remember what happened at the old Orchard site. It turned into litigation, and things get stalled for a very long time. I hope that's not the case here. I hope the case is that we move forward and we just create just a swath of open space for those kids there. But again, that was a part of the conversation about the agreement with the Friends of Lacey that I didn't have, so I appreciate staff for raising that.
Great.
All right, so we have motion and second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Michelle?
Mr. Mayor, on 25G, I'm just going to move forward because the chief articulated exactly what he was going to do with the recruitment campaign, so there's no need so I'll move the item, 25G.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief, you have to budget for that surplus in that recruitment. Got it.
Oh my goodness, Mr. Mayor, I'm a no on 25K, so I'll just you guys can move the item.
Motion. Second. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye.
No.
Those opposed, motion carries.
The same thing for 25L, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. No.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
And then finally, Mr. Mayor, is 25M, and I'm not sure who could, here he comes, our personnel director. I had a just quick question for you, Ed, as we're moving forward to hire a consultant to do our city's vision, life, death, and on and so forth. If you can just explain to me, and I saw the report that took place, the steps that we're taking to go with these groups. You're asking us to enter into an agreement with these brokers, and then as well this insurance services. How much, as we all know, healthcare coverage is continuing to increase. And I know that these brokers, they get fees, right? That's the business that they're in. And so I'm just wanting to ask, and I want to thank you that we finally put a process together that's articulated in the report. I asked this a couple years ago what that process was and how we selected these folks. I want to thank you for that, first off. But just as we move forward with our insurance carriers, our brokers, and I know cost continues to rise. How much of that cost is being associated that the city's covering, and then the bargaining unit, or is this the full-on contract of us going with Keenan and Associates, who's currently the broker of record, and then the rest of these folks based on this insurance? Do we cover all employees on this, or is this just for specific employees?
All employees have access to these benefits. This is just a small part of our insurance program. We spend about $1 million a year on these additional health-related benefits, dental, vision. The bulk of our dollars are spent through CalPERS for health insurance, about $15 million a year.
Correct.
And the city picks up about 90% of that cost.
90%. And thank you for bringing in. I just wanted to highlight that, because sometimes, us as a council, we don't recognize, when we're doing negotiations with benefits, but also the additional benefit that we're giving beyond CalPERS is of a tune of $1 million to provide these additional services, and we're also paying the broker fees on and so forth to make this happen so that they can manage. And so I just wanted to state for the record that we go over and beyond in providing the best benefits to our employees, and I'm just wanting to thank you for giving us the process and being transparent about it. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I move the item.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Do you have another item?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
I don't know what to do.
Move on with the meeting.
Let's have a recess. No, I'm kidding. We're gonna.
Well, I was going to take a break. I'm exhausted.
Go ahead. I know. I'm exhausted listening.
We have one more, Mr. Mayor. I think I pulled.
Go ahead. We have another item on the consent.
25H, but I was going to make a comment on that. I'm simply going to move the item.
So
wow, 25H. This is Michelle fatigue factor.
I'm just worn down at
this. Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you for the comment, Mayor Pro Tem. So with that, next item, Madam City Clerk.
We
Is
have
it 50A or where are we at?
Yes, 50A, we actually have two speakers that wish to speak, even though they are aware that item has been tabled at the request of staff.
Are they still here? Maybe they went home. Adam, are you here? Adam Shadraw, are you here? And then Beth and I believe De Gonce from Damer Healthcare. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council Member. I just wanted to say, as many of you may know, I'm the manager of Mauna Loa Gardens, and I just wanted to kind of recap. Over the past, 6 to 8 months, I've been working with the city. I believe that I've maintained complete transparency. Prior to the acquisition of the property, I worked with the city. Once we obtained the property, we continued to work with the city. Prior to us submitting the CUP, we worked with the city. Once the CUP was submitted and we received the Sunshine Meeting, we had to change tactics, and again, we continued to work with the city. And I believe throughout this entire process, I've maintained 100% transparency. And I believe that I've continued to invest in the property through both capital improvements and also within the community, doing various volunteering events, reaching out to the community, doing garden improvement, and so on and so forth. And to be honest with you, I was really quite surprised at this ordinance, and it kind of caught me out of left field. And I was really surprised at the city's approach of this ordinance and the position in which it took. Regardless of the ordinance, I'm going to maintain my transparency, and I'm going to continue to work with the city and make sure that we turn Mauna Loa into an apartment complex that the city can be proud of. Whether or not we eventually go for the CUP is yet to be determined. But right now I have a position and I have an obligation to my employer to make sure that this apartment complex remains an apartment complex. I did receive a letter from the city addressing about 3 different points, and I responded to the city planning department and addressed each one of those 3 points and ensured the city, once again, that I maintain that transparency. So basically, my request to you is that we can continue to maintain that transparency, and we can continue to find a resolution through dialogue versus policy reform. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chandra. I'm sure our staff and our Director of Planning will continue speaking with you and continuing to have that open dialogue. So next speaker is Britton Devereaux.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to just reference item 50A. I'm a resident of Santa Ana. I just came from Costa Mesa earlier today talking with the city there as well. I'm a resident of Santa Ana. I'm a business owner, and I'm a person in recovery. And I just want to speak to the fact that the work that this industry does is so important. It's important in terms of our community, our economics, our marketplace, job opportunities, academic opportunities, and what group homes and sober livings offer to individuals that come from a criminal background or come from a background of a broken home is a place to regather themselves and to re-socialize and to reintegrate into community in a way that's really healthy. And I know 50A has been tabled, but as a member of the community, I just want to say that I appreciate your consideration of the item and the importance of what these homes serve to do for the community. As I mentioned, I'm somebody that's in recovery. That process was extremely painful, extremely difficult. I was in the middle of my career and leaving what was comfortable to me, selling my house and doing lots of different things. It was life-altering to go to treatment and then to sober living. And for me, it's been life-altering in the best ways possible. And I serve and work with clients that have the very same experience. And I know that there are lots of different experiences when it comes to boarding homes or group homes or sober livings, but I want to stand here loud and clear and tell you that the work that you do is just as important as the work of the recovery community, in the sense that we all want a strong community. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for that. I would entertain a motion on the recommended action.
Mr. Mayor, I know we want to continue the item, but I just wanted to make comment because, we've discussed this issue as it pertains to granny flats and I mentioned earlier to you all, we have a housing crisis. And not only do we have a problem as it pertains to affordability, we have here in the city, we have an overcrowding issue, and we have also a supply and demand. And as we move forward, I know not all our residents can comprehend or understand that some of the policies that we have to make are not, because we have not been able to educate out in the ground that we need to provide other forms of housing and policies to make that happen. Look, the governor just made a huge decision to do a by right, which means that now at the local level, we don't have that control. So people want to build, developers are going to want to build. They're going to have the right to do so. Because look, I want to put something into context for you all. We're about 1 million houses short here in California. And so when you start talking about the homeless issue, and we're starting to see, look, the problem is that we could put all the homeless shelters in the world or here in Orange County, but we're still not going to solve the affordability issue or the housing crisis that we're facing here today. And so we're going to have to change our policies to accommodate, and to make sure that we're able to house not only our homeless population, but those folks in sober living and recovery. We shouldn't shame those folks and say that we shouldn't have that, not in my backyard. We continue to have this NIMBY mentality, not just here in Orange County, not just here in Santa Ana, but across this nation, across California. And if we really care about the housing crisis and wanting to make sure that we're able to house our millennials, to house our seniors, to house everyone, we're going to have to start looking at at these kinds of policies that are being brought before us. We can't continue. We got to have the courage to address these issues. And I know that our staff has moved this forward to continue to study. But eventually, the city council is going to have to make these kinds of decisions if we really care about solving the housing crisis here in Santa Ana, in particular, because when we look at the supply and most importantly the issue of affordability, it's major here in Santa Ana and in Orange County. But the other thing that has affected our community is the overcrowding. And then when we have our residents talking about parking, we have to start looking and amending the way we do our policies as it pertains to parking, as it pertains to housing. So when we look at Granny Flats, I had a resident call me today, complain, look, they're going to build a 2-story house and, more cars are going to come. And I said, ma'am, I definitely respect you, and I'm very supportive of residents having a good quality life. But ultimately, we have to look at those that we are wanting to protect. The majority of these residents don't have a good quality of life because of the overcrowding. We have a lot of overcrowding, and we need to have different forms of housing to alleviate that, because we're not having new housing stock. No matter how much we're supportive about affordable housing, we can't build it fast enough. It's just not enough units. So we have to start looking at a different dynamic and looking at policies like this and supporting them. And so I know certain people out there in this community are going to say, why would Michelle support this? We're not going to support you. But ultimately, we need to start looking long term and the sustainability of this community if we want to house people the correct way, the healthier way, so that everyone has a good quality of life. This is about equity. And so I'm sorry that I'm so passionate about this issue, but when we talk about housing, there's a major housing job imbalance here in this county, and Santa Ana should be the leader. And so I'm hopeful that we continue to bring this item forward and make a decision of how we're going to move these policy forward to provide dignified housing for all our residents.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I just want to say that I agree with Councilmember Martinez. I think something that we have to look at is there is a direct correlation. We talk about the homeless issue that we have, and yet some of our homeless folks have had issues with abuse. Absolutely. And so you can't say we're not going to provide opportunities here in our city for those people to get back on their feet, to get through their treatment, to go through recovery, and then still complain about the issues that we have at times. And I agree. I think that we have to have some courage. I think this council has always had courage. If you look at everything, I mean, Santa Ana has really dictated where the direction that the rest of the county is going. We've been the first on a lot of items. So I agree with Councilmember Martinez. I think that there's a level of maturity as a community and as a society to really take a look at those and look at them in value when people want to bring those types of programs into our city.
So with that, what's your pleasure?
We're going to continue, right?
Yeah, it was at the pleasure of our staff.
It's tabled. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion to table.
Second. I'll second it. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. It's kind of hard to get seconds today. I think you guys, we got to wake you up or something here. That was an easy one. It was a table. I still can't get a second. So with that, what's the next item, Madam City Clerk? Is it 50B?
Item 50B, yes.
Do we have any speakers on that?
No, we do not have any.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 55A, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 55B, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, motion carries. I appreciate the motion and the second. It happened spontaneously almost. 55C, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. At least we have two council members that are following everything. 55D.
Motion approved.
Second.
Oh my God, they did it again. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, 55E.
Motion approved.
Second.
All right, we got a second from Amesqua. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
They beat you, Vince. Those opposed, motion carries. 55F as in Frank.
Mr. Mayor, move the item, and I'm supportive. I just wanting to know what that cost is associated with that, and I'm not sure where a police chief or someone that could answer that, or a personnel director. But if we can get that report later, I'm just wanting to know what that associated
All right,
cost.
so you'll accept the memo?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 75A, this is time and place for public hearing to consider the amended chapters 22 and 41 of the Santa Municipal Code to comply with new state legislative for massage establishments citywide. Do we have just staff on standby if we need a report? Madam City Clerk, any written communications?
No, we have not received any.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing, see if there's anybody that wishes to address us at this matter. Seeing the long line diminish, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for consideration.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. 75B. This is another public hearing. Staff has requested continuance on this public hearing, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 75C, this time and place for a public hearing, consider conditional use permit 2016-21 to allow ABC license for Super King Market located at 2741 West MacArthur Boulevard. Do we have any written communications? Okay. If we have no staff presentation, let's just have staff on standby. I have applicant available to speak if we so desire. So with that, for now, let me open and close the public hearing and bring it to council for consideration.
Motion to
I'd like
approve.
to move the item.
Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. Madam City Clerk, you choose, okay? Okay, with that, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item, I believe we're on the Housing Authority, Madam City Clerk.
Yes, that's
I would
correct.
entertain a motion on consent calendar items 1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Michelle, are you going to make comments first today or not?
Mayor, I'm actually leaving. I have to go pack. Sorry.
You have to go pack. Well, thank you for your participation. So, Angie, you'll go
And
first.
in interest of
We're not
time-
there yet. I'm just preparing us.
Oh, okay. I was
I'm
gonna
just
say,
preparing us.
No comments
We're
today.
still, well, if no comment, I'll go to you first. Item number 3 on the Housing Authority, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Happy, safe travels, Councilor Martinez.
See you over there.
And now we're coming, I believe, towards the end of the council meeting. Do we have any public comments?
Mayor, if we can have the successor agency opened?
Okay. Let's open up the successor agency meeting. And I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar items 1 and 2.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. I believe we're towards the end of the meeting, yes? So with no public comments, Mr. City Manager, your report, please. Oh, we do have comments. Please, Ms. City Manager, just hold on a moment. The city clerk told me no comments, but now she changed her mind, and we're all entitled to change our mind. She made up a bunch of cards here really fast. That was a good trick, kind of like those people on TV, that Carbonaro effect. Guys always preparing things. Peter Katz, come on up, and Madeline, prepare your speech because you're next. It's probably already prepared. And after that, Carl Bendings, please. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. You have a copy. I'd just like to invite the Council, if you're available, to the Comlink meeting on Thursday at the Bowers Museum. And I want to personally thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Manager, for making this available. It was a great event last year. We had close to 300 people, and it's the one time a year where our community comes together.
Boy, it's been a year. Wow.
And our community comes together with all 64 neighborhoods coming and meeting one another. These are your constituents, so if you care about community engagement, come out and engage with your constituents. So what we're going to be giving out is our annual Most Beautiful Yardie nominations, our Neighborhood Heroes, and our police department and fire authority will be participating in giving out these awards. And this year we are created a very special award called the William Edward Branch III Inaugural Humanitarian Spirit Award. This award is going to be given posthumously to his widow. He was the young man who defended his neighborhood against a bunch of drunken party crashers on the 4th of July 1 year ago, and he lost his life. They ran him down in the streets, and he was protecting his neighborhood. So hopefully this award will be given every year to a deserving member of the community, and it stands for courage and neighborhood and humanity. And he was certainly a person that gave back to the community. So hopefully people can come out and make this event. It's at the Bowers Museum at 6:30 Thursday night, north parking lot. And it's our annual event.
That is this coming Thursday?
It's this Thursday night. And you were there last year, Mr. Mayor.
I was, and I stayed there the entire meeting, as you recall.
Yes, and we really appreciate it, because without your neighborhoods, you don't have a city, and
I'm with you. If you could please, on my behalf, tell folks that I have to be back with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, so I won't be there Thursday night. But I believe in my stead, Mayor Pro Tem Vince Sarmiento will be there.
You know, actually, Mr. Mayor, all of us, with the exception of Councilmember Amesqua, are going to be in Washington. We're going to be at the NALEO conference. So Peter, I wish we could have.
Yeah.
Is there any
so, anyways, just excuse us.
I have the OCFA board meeting that
all
night.
Right.
So I
but we really appreciate the support of the city and the neighborhood.
You got it, Peter.
We all want to be there. We'll be there in spirit.
Thank you.
You know, a city is like a gift box, but it's what's inside that counts, and that's what's precious. So, and these are the people that build your city.
And you are precious. Thank you very much. Madeline, are you ready? And after Madeline, Carl, I know you're ready. You're there in the second row. And then Ilya Teglin and Robert Teglin, you guys are ready as well. After Peter. Please go ahead.
So, I see dark spaces in parks that double as dens for heroin and other drugs, drug use, numbing homeless folks on the streets that must self-medicate to bear their condition. There's creosote parking lots that double as concrete fields for groups of our children and families to play soccer. Oh, the first one was at Birch Park. The second one, creosote lots that are used for soccer, football, and rollerblades. This is French Park neighborhood, where fields in nearby schoolyards are filled with green grass and are locked from public use after 2:30, Garfield Elementary School. I see walls with graffiti that have messages from tag symbols to messages like Happy Easter Santa Ana, scrawled on buildings and walls because of our lack of programming for art that could beautify tattered facades or turn empty walls into murals, first in Bristol. I see children using the sides of buildings and steps and rails anywhere that they can find to practice skating skills because there's no accessible skate parks except the one at Centennial all the way across town, which is always filled with youth. But this success in the number of children using it is still not enough to prove to officials that we need some of our recreational dollars to be spent to keep more youth out of trouble. And I'm sickened when I see PD ticketing youth for skating and riding bikes downtown on the sidewalk, last art walk. While the government has every capability of using our taxpayer dollars to set up infrastructure to open up spaces for its community to thrive, it has proven to be really horrible at what's called soft development, which is getting the community involved in these spaces so that they can take ownership and cultivate community and place make together. Building economic clusters is another thing that's going on downtown. One of the reasons that Maz Cafe said that they were interested in having something in that structure next door was so that it wasn't just an empty park. We have a complete streets plan, a strategic plan, and an art master plan, and all of them are we're seeing a trend that they're saying the same thing. We have a fitness park that's regularly empty at the Lacey neighborhood at Birch Park. We have beautiful new Apple computers in the Garfield Center that sit underutilized, though the need for free computers in this community is great. At Calle Cuatro Plaza, it could be filled with activity every single day of the week, but instead it remains empty due to the barriers of permitting practices. And Birch Park is about to be fenced, creating false barriers that's only programmed twice a year with Dia del Nino and Shakespeare in the Park event. The fitness park there goes underutilized since no regular exercise program or group are programmed there. The elderly continuously call the police, which we can prove, to report unsavory activity in the park, while there are over 500 residents and businesses in the surrounding area that can think of other ways to program that park to make it useful every single day of the week. So if there's economic opportunity to bring together people to actually build social cohesion, social capital, and healthy communities with multiple groups, that's what we were trying to do in looking at that piece of property that you guys just decided, yes, let's just demolish. I think we need to think of other ways to utilize our parks, and I think we need to think seriously, because you have a lot of parks in this city that are underutilized.
Thank you. Carl? Sorry about that, Carl. I think I called you Peter earlier. Go ahead, Carl.
That may be an insult to Peter, I don't know. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I truly say this, that we have a lot of good things here in Santa Ana. In one area that we do have a concern is that a few years ago, there was a home that was destroyed by fire, unfortunately, at 11008 Baker here in Washington Square. And the end result is that the house that's there right now is a real eyesore to around, but it met all the qualifications. And the reason why is because we have nothing in our procedures that talk about design approval or consistency. So I need your help to give the directions to the Hussein that he can look at this area and come back to you for approval. We actually have two neighborhoods, Henninger Park and French Park, that have this approval, which has allowed them to maintain the consistency, the look of that neighborhood. And if you want to see what it really looks like when you don't have that, look down and drive down 1108 Baker. And it looks like a double wide trailer. It's actually a prefab, meets all the standards, but it's not consistent with the neighborhood. And unfortunately, in this case, there are a lot of prefabs that would look very nice in that area. So I ask you to please give directions to planning so they can put consistency in our approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you send us an email
Yes.
on what you're
Yes.
specifying there, and
Yes.
perhaps something that Development Committee can take a look at? I'm
Very good.
intrigued by what you're referencing, and I've heard it raised before. But if you can provide emails, we can do a little bit of follow up on it. Appreciate
We can do it.
Thank you.
Ilya, are you ready, sir? And by the way, it's Pulido with an O at the end. Pulido.
Well, okay.
Right, just the way it is up there.
Okay. Pulido.
Sorry, I just mentioned it because every time you call me Pulido and every time I say Pulido, and I'm just doing it again.
Good evening, Mayor Pulido.
Thank you.
And respectful Santa Ana City
Bring it down, bring the
Council
mic down.
members. Yeah.
There you go.
By the way, I skip some way to my speeches skipped. I just want to remind you. I want to say the disaster of removing a vulnerable member of the family and placing in the group home institution for profiteering is an abusive practice of government offices funded by taxpayer money. But I am not surprised, because in this country, in this county, and this city, we live under Mafia Czar, CEO of Orange County Regional Center. Everybody catering for his needs. That's why Constitution and law is not here anymore. And if I say anybody, it means every office, including police department. For 2.5 years, it's not possible to find out in what condition live and how abuse Nate. And at the same time, when number of honest police officers prepare the report was deleted. How it can be? But I'm not surprised, because when we coming to the court, the cornerstone of American justice is a presumption that a person is innocent until proven guilty, not in this court. The assumption is reversed in probate juvenile court of Orange County. I am voicing not only my grievance of my family that my son is put for extermination, but also the grievance of numerous families who are abused in the absurd, corrupted probate judges, Lee and Moberly, with fraud and money laundering of Orange County Regional Center, where the public defender does not exist. John Feldon forget that he is paying to protect his clients, because only clients what he care, it's Orange County Regional Center. I don't know what benefits them plan, but it's money not enough for him.
Thank you, Lee. Let's get Robert up there.
Hello, Honorable Mayor Polito and Santa Ana City Council. This is Robert Seglin, brother of Nate Seglin. As I've stated previously, my brother Nate Seglin was removed twice, kidnapped by the Irvine Police Department, released by habeas corpus 2 weeks later. He was kidnapped on December 12th and released 2 weeks later on December 31st of 2013. And in contempt of that release, the Regional Center of Orange County, instead of releasing him to the family, which the Irvine police kidnapped him, placed him in the 903 South Harmon Group Home, in which, in contrary to the home where he was with a family in which he did not have any abuse and did not even report any abuse, in the group home where he has been illegally confined for over 2 years without any oversight of the offices that should be at least visiting him and worried about the abuse. Instead, for 2 years, with over 150 reports of abuse to the Adult Protective Services, as well as numerous times of police visiting him, and he having seizures and EPS, even in front of the police or even in front of the staff who refuse to take him to the hospital, and the paramedics who cooperate with the staff and the police as well, who refuse to take him to the hospital. In contrast to, if you Google Nate Seglin kidnap, Tseglin, you will see the picture of the Irvine paramedics together with the police forcefully putting him on a gurney and tying him against his will in order to put him in Hoke Hospital and thereby try to commit him in a placement that Regional Center wants, whether it's their involuntary placement in a institution, or when he was released, they placed him in the group home in order to put him on the psychotropic drugs illegally. And the Santa Ana police refused to document his reports of abuse, and when they visit, and my father requests them to visit, they don't want to let them visit together, and they conceal any records. Police are supposed to have at least records, video and audio when they enter, and they don't show that. In addition, you have the problem of the regional center being allocating $50,000 a month through the DDS, and that's a private organization, and you have a public defender who lies in the court and says the father's telling me to shake and have seizures and abuse and so forth, and then you have a judge, Moberly, who refuses to suspend the conservatorship despite over 2 years of reports of abuse. So therefore it would be essential that the police would do their job in order to remove they don't know where to remove him, but certainly working with the social services, they should at least write reports that are honest and not deleted, because we have more than enough of testimony.
Thank you. All right, now, Ms. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I only have one item, but it's very important, and it relates to the 4th of July. And we have spent a tremendous amount of time getting the word out, and we want to make sure that the viewing public sees this flyer. And I want to emphasize that illegal fireworks are going to be a very serious situation this year, and we don't want anybody to say they didn't know. But if they're are apprehended for the illegal use of fireworks, the fine is $1,000. And we have tried to communicate this. We've already had people fined $1,000. And so we will be out there, the police department in force, with this very, very serious message that only safe and sane fireworks are legal in Santa Ana.
Thanks for that. Now let's go, Councilor Amezcua.
Just real quick, I do want to say I wish Gail the best. I know today was going to be her last meeting with us, and I think I just want to wish her the best. She's been great to work with.
Thank you. Councilor Reyna.
Yeah, like normal, there's a lot of activities going on, but nothing more than losing a great support mechanism, a great staff. And this is Gail Woods. When I first came into the city council, it's different, and you really don't know what it's like until you really sit in that seat. And to have an assistant to be able to help you through the process and open your eyes to some of the things that maybe you weren't aware of, or constantly remind you of items you needed to take care of. And I was so blessed to have Gail. I specifically wanted her because our personalities mesh. She's a little loud and crazy like I am. So we completely mesh, and I'm going to miss you a lot, Gail. I don't know what camera's on, but I'm going to miss you a lot. I wish you good luck in the next adventure of your life with this next chapter. Please come back and visit as often as you possibly can. And for one, I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for those words, Roman. Councilor Benavides, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There it is. A couple of main things, actually. Just one is I wanted to highlight and invite folks from the community out to July 4th over at Centennial Park. It's going to be every year. I'm not sure exactly how many years it's been running. I think we have about 6 years. This is our 6th year. And it's been growing and becoming more of a draw to the community. Just want to encourage folks to come out and benefit from all that takes place in planning and the fireworks spectacular at 9 o'clock. It really is something else. Bring your picnic blanket, bring your lunch, or there likely be food vendors there and activities for the family. So I want to encourage folks to come out and participate in one of the many wonderful things that make Santa Ana such a great city. With regard to the enforcement side of things, if there's anything, I know that there are a lot of efforts that is being made by various personnel. One of the ideas, we want to make sure that the community knows that there is a zero tolerance, minimum $1,000 fine. This is to protect our structures in the city and to protect our community, keeping them safe. We have a number of LED signs, electrical signs, both at the Santa Ana Stadium. We have partnerships with Kia Depot, with the Auto Mall. There's schools. Most schools have now electronic signs as well. Anything we can do to be able to partner up with the school district to get that message out there as well, and essentially to deter people. That's the reason for increasing that fine up to $1,000. That it would be hopefully a strong deterrent to keep our community safe. Just want to encourage staff to look into some of those items. I want to echo some of the comments and just wish Gail well in her retirement. And I just want to encourage folks as they look to shop, whether it be for 4th of July or anything else, to shop local, shop Santa Ana. With that, have a great evening.
So now I can call Councilor Benavides when I'm about to run out of gas. In case I got a backup. Councilor Nahero, please.
Again, I want to echo what you guys said. Gail, I wish you the very best. We're not going to see your smile around on the 8th floor, and that's always going to be missed. But it's always nice to see someone that goes out in style, goes out on their own terms, and is able to have a dignified retirement. And I know she'll have more than dignified. She'll have she's going to be partying all the time, So anyhow, Gail, it was nice knowing you. It was nice working with you, and I wish you the very best. Michelle's not here tonight. She had to leave, as you know. She had to catch a plane. But I think it's a good moment to reflect. This week, she will give up her position as president of NALEO, the largest Latino organization for elected leaders in the United States. to have one of our members rise to that level is pretty amazing. And so I wish she was here, but I'll congratulate her myself because I want to see her pass the baton. So I'll be out there with her as well and interacting with other Latino leaders from across the country. And so Michelle Martinez, what a wonderful accomplishment to become the president of NALEO, to be a young woman from the city of Santa Ana who had a difficult time growing up. I think she's an inspiration to a lot of women, and so I just wanted to congratulate her for that. Also, I want to congratulate the school district, and I also want to thank our staff and our council members. I used to be on the Board of Trustees at Santa Unified, and I remember when I was there, it was really difficult to work with the city. Judas Priest, it was rough. It was almost like, you guys are the school, we're the city, we're not going to work with you, we're not going to help you. And it was just so, I was always puzzled by it. What's really nice is you have a teacher on the council, you have a former board member, I'm a former board member, and all of us here really know that at the end of the day, it's a team effort. We were in this together, and so the city was able to co-sponsor some of the events that happened with the graduations. I want to thank everyone on the council because every single member here stepped up one way or another to help with some of the costs that went on there. And I think that's a good example of a city and a school district working together to make this a great event. It was funny because when I talked to people, my nephew graduated from Segerstrom, and so when I talked to his mother and I talked to other folks, they actually said they liked it better there. They said, we should have it there every year. I said, no, that's a $200,000 encroachment. I don't think it's going to happen there every year, but I do know that Eddie Westfield is going to be going to be renovated, and it's going to be a great place. I did ask the mayor if he could also close tonight's meeting on behalf of Rudy Gallegos. For those of you who don't know Rudy, he owned Gallegos Construction, and he built Eddie Westfield. He also built our public libraries. And when I was born in Orange County Hospital, it's now called UCI. It's over by the block. He built that as well, built Hogue. Graduated from Santa Ana High School, so he was a saint with you guys, and he was an undefeated boxer until his parents told him, you have to quit. They didn't want to see him take shots to the head, so he decided to create his own construction business. But I know the mayor knows a lot about him as well. But I just want to ask the mayor if we can close on his behalf.
We'll be happy to do so.
Historic moment for our city.
Be happy to do so. Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just also want to join in bidding Gail a farewell. I know that she's been with the city since I started. She wasn't my assigned to me, but we work closely together because she was in charge of travel, and she's always been in charge of receipts and everything else, and she never let anything slip by. So, Gail, I wish you well. I wish you much luck, and it's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you these years. I also want to just touch on real quickly on the adjustment that we made to the budget and looking at the surplus, the prospective surplus. So thank you, Mr. City Manager, for working with us and allowing us to work through. Sometimes things are messy, sometimes things are reflected upon, and we have to adjust. And we know that we're going through a period where conditions are changed. I don't think that our efforts or our intentions are different with the department or allocation of resources. It's just that the conditions externally have changed, and we have to be nimble enough to adjust and to make sure that those trends and those spikes are exactly that, just a spike, just something that will come back down. So we hope we helped a little bit in that effort. Thirdly, what I wanted to mention was that I wanted to thank Councilmember Tinajero, because I think that he's very humble and modest in what he does as a debate teacher. And I know he wound up his career as a debate coach over at Fullerton Union. But what he is trying to do for the city now, I really do applaud, because I know he's been looking to bring tournaments here to the city and draw attention to the city as a potential site for future tournaments. My son is on the Orange County Debate League Board of Directors. He's a Golden Gavel winner. And he learned to debate in part by Sal's tutelage. And so I want to thank him for that, but I want to thank him for also looking at the best interest of the city in drawing attention to being a site for a tournament, because that means that we're not only going to help the city or attempt to help the city be more fiscally sound and bring more monies and revenues to the city, but also just to rally around good things like debate. I mean, that's a good scholastic academic topic that we should be introducing our kids to. There's a direct correlation with a child's ability to publicly speak and their success in life. And their self-confidence, their ability to do well in any endeavor. So, thank you, Sal. I appreciate that. I hope we compete well with other cities to draw attention here. And finally, I just want to thank staff for some work that was done at where I hold my office hours at the Delhi Center. In a matter of just weeks, and I know Julie, you can speak to this. We've had monies go towards ADA improvements, which is for disabled and folks to be able to access the center. We've had restriping and slurry seal and resurfacing of the parking lot, and we've had a roundabout that was constructed on Central Avenue right in front of the elementary school. The other day I was walking out of my office hours there, and I bumped into somebody who was a resident, and he was tearful. And he was taking pictures of everything, saying that he was so grateful for what we had done, and he wanted me to share his pictures with staff and to say that he really appreciated all the effort that everybody made to make his center better. So on his behalf, he's a member of OCO, which is the Orange County Congregation of Churches there, and he belongs to Our Lady of Guadalupe in that neighborhood. But he was just so grateful for everything that was done for him. So I wanted to just share that message with you because it was very touching. And I think, were you there with me, Daniel? I think, Daniel, you took some pictures of that as well. And, his name's Leonel. So on behalf of Leonel and all the residents in Delhi, thank you all for the great work that you did. With that, good night.
Thank you. I will close, as Councilmember Tinajero requests, in the name of Rudy Gallegos. But before I do that, just beg to differ respectfully with Councilor Tinajero as to the past as it relates to the city and the unified. We, I believe, had great things that we accomplished together in earlier years. Let me just give you 3 examples. I remember many years ago when we gave $30 million to the school district to build, the Ray Villa School. We used to have lots of redevelopment money, and we could write checks, and one year they were short of capital to build that school. I remember we voted $30 million to help build a school. Also, more recently, and you may have been on the school board in those years, we had an opportunity to build Mendez Intermediate, because that had to be a city school district project because there was some state money, and that school had to be built on private property in essence. And so we went to a developer, Scott Bell, got him to work with the grant, and so there's a parking lot that's part of the shopping center underneath Mendez, and I think Mendez is another great school. And then another example, I know you're on the board then, we had discussions about what to do with Centennial Park. We needed another high school at the time, and we did the ultimate joint use agreement, and that's Godinez High School. Today, much of Godinez High School is on city property. We don't have the fence, and that was a big, tough issue, but we solved it. And again, an example of things that we've done working together that I can't think of any other city in Orange County or beyond that could emulate things of that magnitude. So, let's continue with positive relations. I think we've had them for a long time. And talking about positive relations, Rudy Gallegos was a true gentleman. He was such a gentle soul and such a giant. Yes, he built Eddie West Stadium, and he built, the hospitals, but also, he did a lot of other infrastructure in the city, sidewalks, curbs, streets. When Santa Ana was much younger, and we needed general contractors that could do all sorts of things, Rudy Gallegos was a true star. And later in life, as he retired. He continued to be an architect. He continued to draw. He continued to consult. He continued to care so much about this community. And, to me, it's a real privilege and honor to be able to close this in his honor, but also to send our condolences to his family. This is a big, big loss for the community. And for those of us that had the privilege of knowing Rudy, we know what that means. And those of us who didn't, we still owe him a ton of gratitude, because the city wouldn't be the city it is today without pioneers like Rudy Gallegos. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.